are listening to Spaceboy Universe on the SBU network.
Explore the universe with Spaceboy and Surlana.
32 minutes, 21 seconds. 5-second tone followed by a 1-second pause.
You are listening to Spaceboy Universe.
Okay, gang, let's go.
From the space city called Houston, Texas, welcome to Spaceboy Universe, featuring Spaceboy and the lovely Surlana. So strap in and prepare for launch sequence.
Greetings and salutations, I am Spaceboy.
And I'm Surlana.
And this is Spaceboy Universe. It is some date in the 12/17/2016, and we're on show number 115. Tonight's guest is UFO researcher Jane Kyle, and we'll be having her at the bottom of the hour. As always, follow us on Twitter. That's at the SB Universe. Follow Surlana at Surlana, and you can follow me at Spaceboy at Spaceboy Music. And of course, we're on the power of networks, the SBU network. So follow that as well. Remember to hashtag your tweets tonight at hashtag SBUniverse and hashtag Space Cadets. If you want to hang out with the Space Cadets, you can do so by going to spaceboyuniverse.com, click the dancing chat bubble in the player, and that will get you in with all the cool kids. In addition to Twitter, you can find the universe on Facebook, Tumblr, SoundCloud, iTunes, and YouTube. Just look for Spaceboy Universe. Speaking of YouTube, you can find more than the Spaceboy Universe of archive of shows. There is content from Spaceboy music, video interviews, 2-bit gamers, and so much more. Can't catch the show live? No problem. Take the SBU on the go with you via Spreaker, SoundCloud, and iTunes as always, because we love to broadcast. And how are you tonight, Surlana?
I'm laughing at Bob.
What's he up to?
And because we wonder if K28's alone in the other chat talking to himself.
Oh, well, that's really
well, we did warn him, and Bob got it,
Yeah. I did post that little notice there. The way the thing is, I guess we should explain is that SB Music has moved to Saturday nights before the show. And it was kind of weird tonight because SB Music is not technically live. It's a pre-feed that I recorded earlier in the day, and somehow I didn't get the scheduling right to where it's supposed to be available at 8, but we went into the chat room at 8 o'clock and started chatting with some of the Space Cadets. So that's what the deal is. So you can catch Spaceboy music now on Saturday nights before Spaceboy Universe. And what do you think of that, Surlana? She's following her nails.
I like it because it makes my life, it's more convenient for me.
Well, I understand.
I don't know what anyone else thinks about that. But.
Well, the thing is that, SBU, SBM, it's on the go. You can take it with you whenever you want. You can play it out. We get a lot of listeners who listen live and interact with us, but we get a lot of listeners who do on demand and go with us with the flow. So there's nothing wrong with doing either or. Saturday night, people have lives. They like to go out.
Unlike us, people have lives.
I mean, our lives are Spaceboy Universe and Spaceboy music. And
we're like an 85-year-old couple. We'll just tell it like it is.
So that is the thing, is that we've freed that up. And
if we weren't doing this, you would be binge watching something, and I would be reading a book.
Probably. I'd be
We wouldn't be out. We still wouldn't be out doing anything.
Vegetating in my recliner and binge watching, but so that's what the deal is, and then of course, we belong to the SBU network, which also hosts Reverend John Polk's show, the quantum hologram matrix. And, it's really a good show. You should tune into that when you get a chance. It's on Wednesday nights at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time, Texas time. And so tune into them. Tell them that the Spaceboy sent you that direction. And, support the network. Man, we've been working hard. Reap the benefits of what our work has, come to. So, anyway, speaking of binge watching, Westworld?
Yeah.
I know you've got one more episode to go. And
last episode.
Why don't you tell the audience your thoughts of the show?
Well, that ties into banter and whatnot.
Right.
I found out that Westworld was HBO's most watched first season ever.
Wow.
Yeah.
I can believe it.
I kind of like it for the trying to figure out who's a human being and who's not a human being.
Right.
And one of them, they left just enough clues for me to figure it out. So I don't know if I respect a show, if I can figure it out, do I like it? Like, let's for instance, Mr. Robot. You know what the Sam Hill was going on with that. Just, that was just no way to predict anything.
Well, the thing is, as you know, I've already finished Westworld off. I went ahead because my binge addiction.
I'll try to get that done.
Took over, but the fact is that once you see the last episode,
would you watch it again?
Oh well, I've been.
Yep, last episode.
I've been kind of watching it again with you because. So
if I wanted to finish it today or tomorrow.
Yeah, it's a great show, and what I liked about it was it gives the payoff of what's been happening. And then, too, as I've been rewatching it with you, going back to, where you left off, and then kind of building back up to episode 10, it's been like, oh, okay, so that's what that is.
And the reason he goes ahead and watches it before me is because he's a binge watcher and he's impatient. And I'm like, any TV show, I can take it or leave it, really. Honestly, maybe there's been a couple of exceptions, but... Maybe Stranger Things was an exception. I wanted to get.
Well, you know that it's kind of like I'll binge watch, like for example, a complete show over a weekend, or within a 5-day span or maybe less, depending on how much time. Just so I can.
I think I need variety in my day.
Well, it's just you're always saying, well, I admire the fact that you could just sit there and watch a TV show like that, and but
now I can binge read.
Well, and you can,
and I used to do that when I was a teenager, and I didn't have any other obligations other than being a teenager. And instead of going out and doing typical teenage girl things, I was reading from like 7 p.m. to 3 a.m. 4 a.m. nonstop.
Well, the binge watching thing for me is that I've always wanted to be able to do television on demand. I think that's for me is like
that's
pinnacle.
been a dream we've had since cable came into being.
Well,
be able to. Like, I wish I could just watch what I wanted to watch, when I wanted to watch it,
and
how I wanted to watch it.
And you're talking about a la carte.
And finally, it's here. You got to pay for it, but that's fine,
But the idea of, like, for example, there might be a show that I would have never watched on regular TV. But then, I go back and I watch it on Netflix, and it's like, wow, that was a great show. And no commercials usually helps in the sense that binge watching. So, but that brings up an interesting subject about Westworld, is that HBO put its commercials in front of its show.
Yeah,
and it was, in other words, it was 3 minutes before you actually got into the TV show, because one, you had commercials
for another show I don't want to watch or care about.
So you had commercials for another show, then you had the previously on Westworld. And then you had the intro, and, by that point, it's like, holy crap. I felt like I've just sat through, like, 5 hours of nonsense that I just wanted to get right into the show. I wish that Amazon would create a button on, like in Roku, where I could just fast forward it. But the way it's fast forwarded on the Roku is really, it's like jumping the light speed and then kind of landing on a dime kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I measured it out, and it's about 3 minutes before you can actually get into the show. Speaking of other shows, but Westworld will definitely have some more to talk about that next week. As Surlana finishes that off, I got into Spectral, which is a Netflix produced movie, and it was pretty dang awesome. I mean, it was like...
Is that a sci-fi?
It's kind of, yeah, it is a sci-fi. It's about this guy who's created these goggles that could see certain spectrum, and there's this war going on, and somewhere in Europe, you kind of draw your conclusions on where it could be in Europe, and there's these like ghost-like people that are killing the soldiers.
I heard something about that.
And I'm not going to give it away, but the fact is that it was really well done. And as far as I could have seen this in the movies. I mean, it was halfway decent enough to be a theatrical release, and maybe even a sequel or something to it. So if you get a chance, you should definitely check out Spectral. And I sent our good friend Patrick Spores telling him, hey, it was a great movie. I loved it, And he was trying to convince me to see it, but I'd already had it on my list to watch to see. And so, that was good. And then now I'm really jazzed because going from that, because Netflix, they're always coming out with something here and there and everywhere. They're going to be releasing Unsolved Mysteries on Netflix.
I read something about that.
I'm excited about that because it's got the original Robert Stack in it. And of course, what made that show was the intro music.
It's just old ones, isn't it?
The old ones,
yeah.
And that's probably my next heavy binge watching thing I'm going to do is get into that. But I used to watch that all the time on NBC, and then that spooky music,
And it was real.
Oh yeah, it was about real things, or real events, mysteries, and kind of stuff that we cover here. Ranging from Fringe to kind of the detective stuff and really cool stuff. So I'm looking forward to that, catching that on Netflix as well. And I'm trying to think, is there anything else Netflix related other than the hashtag of the evening I'd like to put out there, canceled TV shows, because sometimes you get these canceled TV show seasons that end up on Netflix that are not complete. And I want to hear from the Space Cadets, what is one of your canceled TV show that you liked that it got canceled on you? So when you put that into Twitter, put hashtag cancel and tell us what your canceled TV show, I guess, was. Like for me, it was Stargate Universe. I pitched a hissy fit when they canceled that show off of Sci-Fi. In fact, I severed my relationship with Sci-Fi pretty much after that had happened. But I'd like to hear from you, and it can be from any time period. During the early years of the 50s of television, all the way up to now. So tell us your canceled show by hashtagging it on Twitter. Hashtag canceled. So,
well, speaking of TV, according to Variety magazine, series creator of Mr. Robot, Sam Esmail, is preparing to produce a big budget TV miniseries adaptation of Metropolis.
Really?
That is, if you're not familiar, Metropolis was a film released in 1927 that remains on any top 20 or top 10 list of best sci-fi films ever. It was highly influential, expressionist cinema. Had like dystopian themes, and it was about the economic class warfare. The haves and have-nots. So SML's going to do an adaptation as a TV miniseries. Now, I don't know if this is going to be happening in modern times. I'm trying to find out what this is. But he's currently attached to do this project, and I don't know. There's no word about who's going to be in it or even when it's going to go into production or air, but something to keep our eye on.
Interesting. That you bring up a thing that I started thinking about some things today about adaptations and reboots and things like, for example, based on a novel by blah, blah, blah kind of thing. And you go to watch the movie and you say, well, this has nothing to do with the novel. I mean,
yeah, because they first they have to adapt the novel to a screenplay that has to run within 90 minutes, and it has to appeal to a certain kind of audience.
Well, that got me thinking of, like, you know,
so
how
they've got so by the time it gets to there, it'll probably be chopped up.
So that got me thinking about you know how on YouTube sometimes they do parodies and stuff, like honest trailers, and so I thought, well, you know, if they could kind of get it to a way where it would be the intro of the YouTube video would be adapted from blah blah blah, and you know, it could be something as like Alice in Wonderland, but then you twist it into a sense where, you know, she's like a commando, or, you know, and you know, but it was adapted from Alice in Wonderland, but it makes no sense. But
isn't there yet another new gritty version of Wizard of Oz coming out?
Oh yeah, that's but yeah, it's kind of like that. But I would love to see it done on YouTube, but make fun of the fact that it's an adaptation, which you're taking it so far off the reservation that it's almost unrecognizable, except for certain names and certain
loosely
places.
Based on the concept of.
Yes, exactly, and to be honest with you, that's kind of like how a lot of these reboots and movies are today, loosely based on RoboCop and blah blah blah, and you know, so you know, I would love to see something like that, or something put together, and that would be fun. Hey, you know, I want to bring up tonight. You know, we've been giving space loot away left and right, and would you agree to that?
Yes.
Okay. I'm
gonna go liar.
Well,
no
liar. Anyway, so tonight's space loot is brought to you by our good friend Gordon Roop. We're going to be giving away all callers that call in to the reservation the Wrong Tombstone, and basically it's called The Wrong Tombstone: How a Dead Man May Have Gotten Away with Murder, and everyone receives a Kindle edition if they call in to Spaceboy Universe tonight. So that should be fun, and I'm looking forward to giving away a few of those. Oh, by the way, happy birthday to Barrett. Yeah, and Fred in Paradise too. I wonder if the two are connected. So, speaking of chickens, and the reason I say that is because Fred is a rooster. And did you see that video of the cat and the mouse and the chicken?
No.
Oh, my goodness. First off, it starts off, you see this cat, and it's like, you know, and there's a mouse kind of roaming, you know, around, and the cat's kind of like eyeballing it. And out of nowhere, like some kind of metal music kicks in kind of thing, and this chicken grabs this mouse and starts shaking it and trying to kill it and everything. It was like, I'd never seen anything like this. This chicken was bloodthirsty, and, you know, I guess, you know, chickens will protect the roost, but, you know, this chicken just came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And, yeah. Are you here, or are you seeing visions, or what you doing over there?
Well, stop looking at me.
I mean,
there's no reason for you to even look at me.
Well, I'm having a conversation with you, and I'm like concerned. It's like you're just one step away with that file thing.
I was trying to think of who won last week.
Who won
stuff last week?
I see. Fran.
Fran.
We gave away books. There was Dennis, not Dennis, but Ty.
That's it. Okay.
Yeah, and there's our good friend Dino got a copy.
I thought if I would look over there, it would jog my memory.
Oh, I see what you do. You weren't doing that you looked like you were doing the Forrest Gump thing. You know, where Forrest Gump's sitting there with his
I've never
head,
seen that
and
movie.
His head's like cocked off to the side, and
that's one of the main reasons I don't ever want
the
to.
light. You know, you're looking into oblivion, and there's nobody home, kind of thing. I got worried about you there.
There's really no need to even look at me while we're doing this show.
You know, well, I have to occasionally look at you to kind of gauge your reaction. Sometimes you give me, you know, like the puppet hand, and
well, I make weird faces because I'm on a Linux-based laptop, and I'm not familiar with that, and it does odd things that I don't understand. So I will have these WTH faces. So
Well, I think it was more like sanitarium faces where you're looking out the window and.
well, you know what? Maybe your next wife will be mentally stable and be an excellent producer.
Well, you are an excellent producer.
Well, then why can't-
sometimes you just zone out in times, and I don't understand.
I tried to quit. I tried to quit my job, and he went and goes, "Well, you can't quit." I'm like, "Okay."
But so let's see, what else do we have on the agenda here?
I have stuff if you don't.
Oh, well, go ahead. I mean, I have a couple items, but
Go ahead.
I just want to mention Best Buy will be carrying the classic NES that I'm looking
They
for.
sold that. Is this the one they sold out of?
Yes, they sold out of, and
So the $60 one.
the $60 one that now people are selling for like over $200 and something dollars.
That's silly.
Yeah, I know. It's just a matter of time before Nintendo comes in and like deflates the market on that, and I would love to get my hands on one of those, but I don't know, once again, by the time it's at Best Buy. I even heard GameStop had a few, but they were selling them Friday, which doesn't do me any good because the day job kind of thing, so anyway, so what do you got?
Somebody just said that we should have a cam so we could see all this going on. I said, well, we did. We tried that for one time. But that's when we were having all those tech difficulties, and we were trying to eliminate what the problem was.
Right, and I
we
mean,
could probably do it now.
Yeah, because we have the speed now, the bandwidth.
But the cam would only be on Spaceboy.
Yeah, I know. So you'd see
but
my.
that would be enough. That would be enough.
At some point, I would love to introduce the camera back into the show.
You still have that particular camera you were using, don't you?
Yeah, we'll in all good time.
Speaking of staring off into space, looking like a weirdo. How about this?
Okay.
Police heroically rescued, quote unquote, a mannequin from a freezing car, and the owner was furious.
Now, I think this is a little funny in the sense of my recent purchase, but
Oh God, let's don't even go there. Okay, this is New York Hudson Police Department. This is up there. According to a press release from the police, there were a number of factors that prompted breaking into this vehicle due to this inanimate grandma. I'm going to throw up the link on the chat because you got to see the photo of the mannequin. It's creepy. So this is a quote from the article. Officers arrived minutes later and observed an elderly woman seated in the passenger seat wearing an oxygen mask. She was not moving and was unresponsive.
Wait a minute. They put an oxygen mask on the mannequin? I know.
Stay on the edge of your seat there.
Okay.
It was bitterly cold out, around 8 degrees, something we have no concept of in Texas. And the car had snow cover on it, so like it'd been there a while.
Right.
Which indicates it may have been parked there overnight. An HPD sergeant broke the rear passenger window and opened the door to discover it was an extremely realistic, life-size mannequin. So the owner was furious.
I would imagine so, busting out my window.
It is my understanding that the owner was incredulous, the least, that we took action in this matter, said Edward Moore, one of the sergeants. He was apparently quite vocal and vulgar to my sergeant. So why did he get vocal and vulgar with a sergeant? Well, the owner of the car, is a sales manager for a company that makes these mannequins as medical aids. I don't know what medical aid, unless it's some kind of CPR thing. He apparently leaves these mannequins out overnight, and now we have the most unusual police PSA of 2016. Just to clear the record, all citizens of Hudson should be put on notice that if you park your locked vehicle on the street on a sub-zero night with a life-size realistic mannequin seated in it, we will break your window. That one cracked me up pretty hard. So I
would say so, which leads into I did purchase a mannequin. And,
oh, Lord.
Well, think about, okay, first off, I purchased the mannequin because I got tired of folding up the, and I'm typing something really here quick, Space Cadets, and forgive me, everyone. So, yeah, I got a mannequin for my spacesuit because I was tired of either having it in the closet or having it into a box. And, I just wanted it out because, it's a nice space outfit, and I wanted to be able to look at it and see it, and so I'll have to post some new pictures. But so I bought a mannequin for my spacesuit so that it could be out and enjoy looking at it instead of only looking at it when we go to do events or something like that.
Yeah, you didn't want it stuffed in a plastic box anymore. You wanted it to be displayed.
I wanted to display it and breathe it, let it breathe. And
so that explains those strange photos I've been posting this week. In case you're wondering, I had taken up a weird fetish or something. I had been posting, he had the legs of this mannequin upside down in the box, standing straight up. So I'd taken all kind of weird photos of it, and and he had it all put together, and then he dressed it all up in his suit, and I said, that thing is not living in this room. It's like, well, I was going to put it back there in the studio with us. I went, no. I'm like, I'm not doing the show anymore. I'm like, finally, I got it out. If that goes in the back room, I'm done. That can be your new. That could be your new co-host.
Well, you say back room. The back room is our studio, and I thought, well, it is the Spaceboy Universe studio, and
but then he could be your new co-host. I'm sure he's as scintillating as I am.
Well, he probably has the same look as you do when you're looking off into the distance.
I don't know what idea of the perfect co-host facial expression is supposed to be, but I'm not going to have it.
Well, no, it just it worried me that like a circuit breaker busted, and I was going to have to reset you, or I thought maybe you were a robot there that
Let's talk about interesting things. There's a new gadget for people who are still your music purists who still have your LP vinyl collections.
Yeah.
It's called Rock Block. That's, block BLOK.
Yeah.
It's a wooden block that you set on top of your record, and it just goes around.
Well, it's not really new.
No, but look, it's got new technology. I know that there's novelty things out there from way back when that do that.
American Pickers,
Yes.
Mike went out and he...
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. There's these little gadgets that have been out forever that will play your record while it's sitting on a flat surface. Mm-hmm. Well, this one is wireless, and you connect it to a Bluetooth so you can connect it to better speakers.
Oh, okay.
It's about $99 right now, but if it's on crowdfunding, so if you back it, you might get it for $60.
Yeah, so that makes sense if they're Bluetooth in it, because the original device...
It just came out of a tiny little speaker.
The speaker that was on, in fact, the one that I saw on an episode of American Pickers, it was a little Volkswagen Bug, or Volkswagen van that went around the record and played the record on a flat surface like you're describing.
Well, this has a built-in speaker on it, and you can, like I say, you can connect it to the Bluetooth stuff. So,
Well, cool. So, anything else that we need to add before we go to break and bring in our guest?
Unless you want to hear the top 10 searches of 2016 on Google.
Well, you got 2 minutes. Let's see if you can squeeze it in.
Okay, number 10, Hillary Clinton. Number 9, election. Number 8, Trump. Number 7, David Bowie. Number 6, Olympics. Number 5, Slither.io, which is a web-based game where you're a worm and you'd have to go look it up. Number 4, Pokemon Go. Number 3, Hurricane Matthew. Number 2, Prince. And then number 1, most searched key term of 2016 on Google is Powerball.
All righty. On that magical note, we'll be back after these commercial breaks, and we'll have our guest, UFO researcher Jane Kyle. So don't go anywhere.
I'm from another planet. I'm from another planet. Can you hear me? Answer me. Can you hear me? Answer me.
Mark your calendars. The Houston Mini Maker Fair will be at the George R. Brown Convention Center for a 2-day event on November 12th and 13th. Come join them and be a part of their growth story as they boost invention and creativity through the greater Houston area by developing a world-class exhibition. Stay tuned to the official Houston Mini Maker Fair website at www.houstonmakerfair.com to hear more insights about content, schedule, tickets, and maker exhibitor registration.
Hello Space Cadets. It is announcer Savannah. I want to tell you that as a dedicated member of the SBU team, you always want to look your best. Do it in a Spaceboy Universe t-shirt. Get yours at spaceboyuniverse.com by clicking the banner on the website.
This is author Jordan Root. You are listening to the Spaceboy Universe.
This is K28, and I'm listening to Spaceboy Universe.
Hi, y'all. This is Lori calling from Texas, and I love listening to Spaceboy Universe.
Hey, this is Dave Cruz, host of Beyond the Strange, and you're listening to Spaceboy Universe.
This is Wendy. I'm listening to Spaceboy Universe. Hey, y'all. This is Lorelai DeLille. I listen to Spaceboy Universe. Don't you? Tell your mom and them I said hi.
The epic battle begins this Friday. Direct from ringside at Laser Death Melt Pit. Bot versus Bot in Galaxy's 2-ton weight championship, where your challenger, Good Bot, will face the reigning champion, Bad Bot.
You're terminated.
Reserve seating starting at $30. 2-drink minimum, where ladies don't get in free. This is an SBU production.
You're listening to Spaceboy Universe.
Explore the universe, spaceboyuniverse.com. Spaceboy. And Surlana. Spaceboy, and Surlana. Spaceboy, and Surlana. Explore the universe with Spaceboy and Surlana on spaceboyuniverse.com.
Hey, Surlana!
What?
If Spaceboy Universe was cheese, would you eat it? Come on now, it's a simple question.
Maybe?
SpaceboyUniverse.com. Techno, dance, atmospheric moods? Yes, my friends. My latest release, Digital, has something for everyone. Even makes a great gift for Grandma. Buy your digital download at SpaceboyMusic.com.
Greetings, Space Cadets. Let's see what's in the sky tonight in the Spaceboy Universe. Tonight, in the eastern sky, we have Spaceboy Universe rising above the horizon in glorious splendor. And in the west, we can see Surlana's Majoris, which is visible at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, just below the K28 belt. So keep your eyes on the sky and listen to Spaceboy Universe.
Greetings everyone. You can catch Spaceboy Universe on every Saturday night at 9 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time. However, we know that you might not be able to catch the live show. That is why we have many places to listen to it on demand, like iTunes, SoundCloud, YouTube and Spreaker. So take the universe with you wherever you go.
To call in, dial area code 7137015-14. You are listening to Spaceboy Universe. Here are your hosts, Spaceboy and Surlana.
Jane Kyle is a UFO researcher and a writer living in Texas who has documented over 1,000 UFO and paranormal sightings since 2012. She has a degree in journalism from the University of Texas at Austin and a decade-long career in marketing that keeps her grounded. In addition to searching for the truth, Jane loves watching movies and spending time at home with her husband, son, 3 dogs, and a cat. Her YouTube channel is TexasUFOSightings, which you should check that out on YouTube. And please welcome to the show, Jane. How are you, Jane?
Hey, Jane.
I'm doing great. I'm super excited to be on your show. Thank you so much for having me.
No problem. We're super excited to have you, too, because we've been watching you on YouTube, and it's been a long journey to get you on. In fact, I guess it was back in August, was it, Surlana?
I don't know how we came upon it.
We do the YouTube quite often, and
that's our main source of entertainment.
Compared to the networks, which is kind of boring. But so I think personally, I came across you, and I thought, wow, because there's so many different YouTube sites out there for the paranormal and UFO related.
It's pretty ridiculous.
It is pretty ridiculous. And there was a couple of them that I kind of got interested, and they were kind of good at the beginning, but then they just fell flat for me because they were like pushing an agenda.
And I'll ask her about that in a very generic, oblique way.
But that's how we ended up finding you, is that melting down the crucible, if you will, and kind of just narrowing it down to somebody that we actually enjoyed watching, we came upon you. And so we're glad that you're on the show tonight.
Well, that's super flattering. I mean, like you guys are saying, it's just a zoo on YouTube when it comes to UFO stuff and paranormal stuff. So that means a lot. And I have a lot planned for the channel, upping the quality of everything. So that's just, all the more encouragement, to march on forward with, putting stuff out there. So thanks a lot. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you become interested in all this unexplained phenomenon to begin with?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think like a lot of people that are in this, I was always, super open-minded, maybe to a fault growing up. But it's actually my husband, when we first started dating, which would have been like 2007, that actually really got me into it. So he's not like me, the type to go write about it or make a video or even like talk to other people about it, but he had been investigating it just since he was a little kid, truly just, reading everything he could find, researching everything. And so I just got into it, and I got the UFO bug, I guess you could say, and then found that, wow, UFOs were real, and they're really being covered up and not really being reported on, like local ones, here in Texas, and felt almost obligated to report on it, and the community sort of grew from there almost on its own. So I started the site in 2012. So really since then, I've been trying to document, worldwide Texas sightings, happening right now, and then, and also revisiting ones from a while ago as well, because there's plenty.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Well, your husband sounds like my husband as a kid, reading all that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that we would have a lot in common. We would have a blast, like at a dinner, because he helps out with the site too, and his role is going to be growing, hopefully, just because he's such an expert and he's such a good collector too, of just awesome, just the most amazing thing, books and things. And so, yeah, I mean, the site wouldn't exist, really without him. Behind the scenes.
I think it's great that if you can involve your significant other in a common, topic, it usually helps go a long way. Now, Surlana will tell you I'm quite the slave driver, but in the end, it's like we always have something to talk about. There's something new, something different. So, yeah, we can definitely relate to the husband-wife team. And
well, he's definitely the expert when it comes to this subject matter. And I find things that fascinate me now. Whether or not I believe it or not, that doesn't even matter to me, because I like a good story. So I'm not so much as trying to get to the bottom of things, other than I'm like, hey, I really enjoyed listening to that. And, that's probably
the control.
Yeah, that's probably wrong of me.
It's so entertaining, right?
That's probably wrong of me, because I know there's so much bunk out there that maybe the government is doing on purpose to help blur the line so we can't figure things out.
Disinformation.
So I do understand that there is an importance behind this, because if we're being lied to, even in this matter, then they're capable of lying about anything and everything. So I do understand the broader importance behind this field, not just, oh, that was a good story, because I will actually load up some YouTube vids, like listening to Linda Moulton Howe talk, or Stephen Greer, people like that, and creepypastas, scary stories from Reddit, which I really should be doing, because given the kind of dreams I have, but it puts me right to sleep. So that's how I've gotten on board with it, because, like I said, dating my husband and marrying him, and he was sort of the expert, and he gets into it, and he has his favorite stories and incidences, and I've found a few things along the way. I'm like, oh, now that is interesting, and so I have found a way to pick out things that interest me, and I just want to get some things I would kind of like to get to the bottom of, and other things are like, oh, that was cool, and I don't really want to dig anymore. But how did you start the YouTube channel? Was it, like you said, you were building on your husband's interests, or?
Yeah, so because, I'm in Texas, again, I've covered worldwide events really since ever, and that those are some of my favorite, investigations that I've done. But with the Texas focus, really, I started getting reports directly to me. I still get reports every day, just about every day, from Texans who've seen UFOs. And so there were a lot of videos coming to me, and then also to MUFON, if you guys, I'm sure, are familiar. MUFON has this massive database, and it's amazing, but unfortunately, a lot of the videos just are not seen. There's so much getting reported to them all the time, and so I needed a place to put the videos that I was telling people about. So that's how it sort of started, and then there've been just number of topics that have deserved the video treatment since, obviously, and sightings sent to me. And then, I have actually the website, TexasUFOSightings.com or TexasUFOs.com. I have a few easy ways to get to it, are where I really put everything, that I've written or found. And so the two sort of work together to just document all the very best cases that come under my radar.
So what do you decide makes a good video, and how do you, in your opinion, and how do you decide for yourself if something's genuine or faked?
Yeah. Well, what's helpful about just doing this and reporting it and trying to be the objective reporter is you just sort of absorb it over time, and you get a better and better gut instinct about it. I used to, I don't know, I'm sure if you go through the archives, I used to post, I think, more videos, of what were Chinese lanterns in my earlier days when I couldn't, I would suggest, could these be Chinese lanterns? But it wasn't as easy for me to identify, if for people listening, Chinese lanterns often get mixed up with UFOs. They create this beautiful, just like mesmerizing effect in the sky where you see these glittering orbs of light, disappearing, reappearing seemingly. It's quite amazing. And if you see just a few by themselves caught up in the wind, they could maybe seem to form a triangle. And so I used to, report on all of those, and now have learned, to sift through not necessarily hoaxes, but just true misidentifications, and be able to spot those things that seem, truly strange to me, because I truly, statistically speaking, have not seen it that often. I have a true gauge of what's rare, what's unusual. I've seen so many lens flares.
Yeah.
So a lot of J.J. Abrams,
yeah.
huh?
Yeah, I've seen so many lens flares. I've seen so many drones make it especially hard right now.
Oh, yes.
I find that I think sometimes there's videos I don't post or, investigate that maybe are worth it, but it's just too easy to explain it as a drone that it becomes what has been occurring lately, though, in Texas and the world, and I definitely can say I've never seen anything like this so persistent, at least, because there's just been video after video and drawing and photo are large, dark triangle crafts flying quietly and slowly in Texas and the country and even other parts of the world over the past several months. So that's been something, and I've seen that, to your point of what do you know, how do you know if something's real or not? I look at the pattern, so are other people talking about it in the area? Is there video, photo? And the triangle craft sightings lately has been one of the more well-documented, obvious ones that's very hard to debunk. And now, are they alien? That would be a different question.
I was going to say that there has been definitely an increase of triangle shaped UFOs being reported, more so now than it has in the past. But it's kind of like a roller coaster of when it comes to the UFO topic in general, because there was a time when you had so many people reporting abductions, and now you don't really hear that much on the abduction.
Interesting.
And now there's quite a lot of reports on the triangle thing, like you're saying. And just kind of stepping back to the drone thing, the drone thing makes it very difficult, because you could have a fleet of drones, and they have them where I've seen videos where they synchronize them and they do all these acrobatics at night, and it's quite amazing.
Well, the triangle ones, there's the one that's a solid shape, and then there's like a triangular wing shape, like an open V. So I had just recently heard Dr. Stephen Greer talking about what he believes to be a giant hoax will be coming our way someday about a false invasion. So he had the little models of each of these triangular crafts, and he said, these are man-made, and they're doing these on purpose to see what kind of reaction the public will get, to see if, one, is the public seeing them, and two, what are they making of it, and if they believe it's ET, and if we think it's ET, that's great. That's what they're wanting, because they're trying to start building some panic or some fear.
Mm. Yes, and I know those triangle crafts, that specific. There are. You are correct. There's some varying degrees with. I think it's want to say the TR-3B. Mm-hmm. I don't want to say it wrong, but that's been sort of rumored military craft for a really long time, to Stephen Greer's theory, and a lot of people in the UFO paranormal community and experts believe that some kind of fake alien invasion is coming. I had the pleasure to interview Michael Horn, who is the representative for the Billy Meyer UFO case, who not everybody is familiar with, but a lot are. And, his take, and Billy Meyer's a famous UFO contactee who you could believe is hoaxing or not, it's totally up for interpretation. His take is that, there's no evil, ET living on Earth or going to invade Earth. And so anything, along those lines that occurs would be to what sort of Stephen Greer is saying, some sort of fake ET invasion. But then it gets a little bit strange too, because a lot of things that Greer says is different than the things that Michael Horn says, and it's different than Linda Moulton Howe says. That is different than I don't know if you've been following former Blink-182 rocker Tom DeLonge.
Tom DeLonge, oh yes.
He decided to take this on. So they're all saying different things. It appears for different agendas, or different interpretations. So it seems like something is going to happen, but what that is and how people interpret it and what it's used for is a Pandora's box, if you will. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's been an especially interesting year for me to report on sightings, because there's these real documented cases, and then there's this context of everybody talking about disclosure and some kind of fake ET invasion or ET invasion. So it's rather yeah, it's interesting.
Well,
it keeps me on my toes, for sure.
Indeed. Do you believe that our government or someone has the technology to fake something on that level?
I would think nowadays, I mean, sure. It's hard. I mean, if you could, I mean, look at the amazing YouTube videos that, you know, amateur filmmakers are making with just like barely anything and like no budget. I mean, it's just, it's very, and the internet actually makes it even easier to perpetuate sort of any, I mean, fake news, of course, has been, you know, in the news lately. Obviously that, but, you know, if everybody's worried about fake news, it just shows the power of news. So with internet, yeah, I think almost anything can be perpetuated. I think that's why it's so important, I mean, all the time, but maybe especially now, that people start getting informed and do research and get their head around what their viewpoints are and who they trust before the coming years. Because I definitely think there's going to be, I don't know what will happen. Maybe it's just that they announce microbial life on Mars.
Yeah.
But something will be announced. You know, some event will happen, and it will be important that we all have our heads right about it, because it's easy to be deceived, for sure.
Well, that leads I was going to say, that leads into, like, how do you, I mean, that comes to the problem where I've had this conversation with Surlana, is how do you tell when it's the truth? I mean, it's like, how do you shift through? I mean, when
do you know the truth when you hear it?
Exactly.
Nowadays.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that's, so I sort of consider myself, I remember, I don't know if you guys watched Total Request Live back in the day, TRL on MTV. But I remember Carson Daly talking about, he was defending, you know, why he was playing, you know, Britney Spears music videos. And he said that he was just the bartender, you know, serving up, you know, what people were asking for. And so I tried to seem, because I think that this is all very confusing, even after everything that I've researched. I continue to learn new things all the time. So I see myself as, instead of, you know, telling people what to think or telling people what the truth is, finding out what all the different people and experts are actually saying, you know, documenting, you know, what's actually happening, and then trying to put that together for people alongside, so that people can, you know, do the math themselves and figure it out themselves. And I think really the best way to figure out the truth, I mean, is probably to, like, we never will. That's A, you know, or step one, is crowdsourcing. You know, the online community, you know, sharing, you know, this is what I think, this is what you think, let's, you know, just talk it out without an agenda or a bias, just you and me, versus all going and listening to a conference. You know, I love Graham Hancock. I love Linda Moulton Howe. I think they're amazing. Have no reason not to trust them. But, you know, ultimately they're just investigating just like you and me. So I think that is really the only approach that we can have.
Well, I think Richard Hoagland best put it one time when I was listening to Art Bell when he was having a conversation with him, is basically the truth is like a moving target. Yes. It's always on the go. So the best thing we can do is just keep up with that target as the truth kind of unfolds before our eyes and ears, and just hope that we're as accurate as we can get. So.
Right, you just try your best. Yeah, that must have been a great show.
Oh yeah, that was definitely one of those nights to stay up until like 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the morning. So.
Yeah, I love Coast to Coast AM.
So you know, you brought up some of the people you enjoyed listening to, or in kind of research and modeled after. Who are some of the other people that you've you know?
Other researchers
that you've...
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, man, especially these days, I mean, it's incredible how many your self-proclaimed or ufologists there are. It's just, like, incredible. So a lot of people are doing, actually, a lot of good investigation online. I had so much fun. I don't know if you guys heard of Alien Con. It happened this last Halloween. in Coast to Coast AM and Cosmic Con and Ancient Aliens History Channel hosted it. And so that was so neat because, well, Linda Moulton Howe was there, and George Norrie, hosted pretty much the whole event. But somebody who I really enjoyed and especially enjoyed was David Childress, who you guys might know from Ancient Aliens, and of course I'm a fan of Ancient Aliens, but I really enjoyed hearing him talk in person at the panels, and then hearing his conversations continue after the panels with fans. So just to see that he was still still as passionate about it at this point in his career, and Linda Moulton Howe too. She was amazing. She was just signing autographs for hours after a panel. Her handler would be like trying to pull her away, and she was just signing more and more. So that was just neat to see those guys in person, even if I didn't get an autograph or get to talk to them. So they're definitely on my, just favorite people list right now, people to look up to, not necessarily, Linda Moulton Howe covering UFOs, and the others just sort of covering the ancient alien theory, which is just absolutely overlapping. It's hard for me to pull much of that away, I think, at this point in time.
I know personally that Surlana and myself have gone to Contact in the Desert twice.
Oh, yes, love to go to that.
And it was quite the experience. And of course I got to meet Linda, and the first time was, interesting, but the second time I met her, I was in, if you get a chance, you see that I usually occasionally wear a spacesuit, to promote our show. And there I am with this in the spacesuit, telling Linda, like, hey, Linda, last time I was here, Surlana didn't get to meet you. I want to introduce you to my wife. And so there's this picture.
She didn't take her eyes off of him, I don't blame her.
She was like, oh, my God, you meet all sorts of weird people here,
Oh, I'm sure she meets, yeah.
And then, of course, my other treat was meeting Jim Mars. I've always been a big fan of Jim Mars.
I got to meet him as well.
Yeah, so he's quite the, I've got this picture where it looks like he's my father, and I'm like standing right next to him, and but some interesting people that.
But what surprised me was Von Daniken allowing you to take a picture with him and yours while you're.
Oh yeah. So it was like, well, he seemed a little dazed, like, where am I?
Well, it was late at night and it was hot.
Yeah. So but Tsoukalos.
I was like, who are these people?
Mike Barrow, just a lot of the people that you probably are familiar with.
The rock stars of ufology, I guess.
Yes, I think Tsoukalos is definitely, and I wondered too with Tom DeLonge entering this arena, of Tsoukalos, and DeLonge would have like faraway trailers, if they were ever, to like speak at a panel together, because I really wanted to meet Tsoukalos, and he was really all over Alien Con, and just for some reason, I guess it was a short enough event, and I didn't get to see him, but I'm hoping to go next year and get to meet him. We
would love to probably do something here in Texas, and we've got Comic Palooza lined up that we're going to be doing that, because our show is more than just the Fringe, so we do like 6 different topics: Fringe, music, technology, pop culture, games, and history. And so we kind of like keep it fresh and different from thing to thing. But like I said, I'd love to go back to another con, and a space con, or
preferably one that's air conditioned.
Something that's air conditioned and less sand.
Especially if it's the summer.
Yes, especially if it's the summer, especially in Texas.
I don't know why we can't have something on the scale of Contact in the Desert here in Houston. We've got the hotels, we've got the
that's why
facilities.
Maybe we need Spaceboy Con. where it covers. You know,
oh my gosh, do it! I'll be there.
You know, it'll cover the
Please invite me.
Spaceboy Con, and it'll cover all those topics, and it'll be under the George R. Brown Center here in Houston, Texas. And
There's
you know,
an audience for it.
yeah, so I mean, you bring all those people together, and it'll be.
You just got to put up the scratch, you know.
Well, Jane, we're at the top of the hour, so let's take the commercial break, which is really just music playing, but that'll give you a chance to do your sippy and other things, and then so we'll go from there. So I'm going to play Unique Technique, the self-titled track from my new album that's out on spaceboymusic.com, and it goes a little bit like this. So we'll be right back after this.
You are listening to Spaceboy Universe. Now here are your hosts, Spaceboy and Surlana.
Okay, we're back. I was wondering, Jane, what are some of the cases or sightings in Texas that's happened here that really intrigue you the most?
Yeah, so I guess it depends on if you're talking new or old.
Any.
We've got a few more hours to go. Let's fill some time, you know.
Yeah, well, I mean, right now, it's hard to not say I'm really fascinated and intrigued by the triangle craft sightings that are happening, not just in Texas, but beyond that, I mean, there's really, I'm inundated, honestly. But like you said, there's the lens flares, there's the drones, and all those that you sort of have to sift through. So I'm sort of end up left with patterns. So, like the triangle craft. But then that sort of brings me back to the older sightings that I use to refer back to when I'm trying to make sense of the newer ones. So, the Phoenix Lights, everybody knows, about the Phoenix Lights. Mm-hmm. But there really was an incident in Texas like that in Lubbock in the 1950s. Mm-hmm. There was, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Stephenville, Texas lights. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But it really is very similar to the Phoenix lights, a string of lights witnessed by the masses, photographed. In the case of Stephenville, Texas, I think later they confirmed that the craft was going toward President George Bush's ranch.
Oh, yeah.
In Crawford, Texas at the time. Yeah, so when you look at that sighting and then you look at the one in Lubbock that was, kind of similar, string of lights, that's sort of another, similar to the triangle craft, that's another, pattern that, I've seen in reports and photos, because you have Chinese lanterns and drone fleet formations. It can be difficult to decipher. So it's helpful to look back at some of these really old, super famous, more well-documented cases. And then, as far as just classic Texas UFO cases, probably actually the most famous and incredible one is Aurora, Texas in the 1800s.
Yes.
Yes. So that was, well before. So nowadays, you can say, oh, it was a drone.
Yeah, that was unmistakable.
But this was before, crafts, were flying around and helicopters and stuff. And there was an apparent saucer that crashed in Aurora, Texas. An alien body was apparently recovered and was buried in that town. Shortly after, apparently, of course, this is all alleged, as is with anything. Allegedly, then the military sort of swarmed the area, and, nobody's been able to do any real investigation or, survey that burial site really since. And the reason that one intrigues me so much is because while this one was in the 1800s, we obviously all know about Roswell. But there really was a wave. Again, I go back to waves and patterns. Mm-hmm. A wave of crashes like this in the, around Roswell in the 40s to 50s. Mm-hmm. And then in the 70s and 80s of saucers crashing. And our government, our military having almost a, pretty routine response, at least established by the time Roswell happened. So that one's super interesting, not just because it's an amazing case, but it's similar to the more recent, UFO crashes that we've documented. And that one, was in Texas. So, yeah, there's a lot of good ones. And I'll pull up my YouTube while we're talking in case.
Have you been to any of these sites, like where the Marfa Lights or Stephenville on a pilgrimage?
No, but I want to. So Marfa is a dream.
I'd like to do that too.
Stephenville, I've been through that town. I've been through a lot of East Texas, where East Texas is a hotbed for sightings. So I was going to mention, we're going to be revisiting a sighting that happened in Colorado City, Texas. That's on my channel. That the video alone very much, could be a hoax. And that was actually my initial impression when watching it. But it is such an incredible sighting. that, it's kind of like, would you know an alien if it touched you or not?
Right.
Or would you say it's just too good to be true? So it's one of those videos that I've not been able to debunk, over the past year, and that I'm in contact with the witness or his mother. So that is one, in East Texas that we'll be revisiting in a YouTube video coming up, and having an interview with the witness's mom and discussing that sighting. But that sighting was a circular craft with lights on the bottom. And whether or not it is a hoax, that is sort of another pattern we see. Everybody knows about the flying saucer. Now we've talked about triangle and also just sort of massive lights. But seeing a ring of lights, it's pretty easy to imagine in your head, just a circular ring of lights sort of, rotating, under a darker object is another theme and something that I've been seeing really around the world. So, but it is pretty constant. There's always UFOs.
So I guess, we live in a world where like, for example, we have a 4K video camera that can take excellent pictures and video. And what bothers me is that a lot of videos that get shot are not that good, considering the quality of just video cameras or our phone cameras can take. And then when we see something that is so sharp and clean, we automatically say, "Oh, that's photoshopped," or yeah. And what's your take on that angle?
I think that's a real unfortunate phenomenon that it's just impossible to get around, especially because we're conditioned with all the science fiction movies, that we've grown up with. And so anything that's, like I said, too good to be true is too good to be true. But I also think we underestimate or overestimate how easy it is to take good pictures of crafts. So, assuming that, an unidentified flying object is being piloted or, controlled by an extraterrestrial. So also we can assume that they're more advanced than us. Perhaps they could be interdimensional. Perhaps they could, cloak themselves and appear to be like a normal plane, or, a drone or something like that. So I think, if you suspect that ET is very smart and does not want to be seen, and if they are, responsible for some of those UFOs, that could explain why the photos and videos aren't that great. It's also not that easy to take a picture. Try to go take a picture of a plane at night. It's going to look awful. And planes are just gigantic. These gigantic, detailed crafts, with a bunch of people inside them. And you go try to take a picture of one at night, it's not going to look pretty, even no matter how and also, you're not trying to. A UFO is never prepared. You're never prepared for a UFO. And what I will find out often, because I get way, way, way more written testimonies than I do photos and videos, and that's why actually a lot doesn't end up on the site. I'm working on a solution for that, but right now I'm quite behind. You only see sort of those photos and videos. Most people are not ready to go, with their high quality camera,
right.
And they see UFO. A lot of them want to take in the experience. Some of them are shocked. Some of them will go for their camera. And then by the time they get it ready, the UFO is gone. But I can't tell you how many times people will say, it just does not look like what I saw in person. This is just not doing it justice. And, any one of you guys go take out your iPhones tonight and go try to capture the beauty of the supermoon. It doesn't come across, as pretty when you're not ready. So I think there's some misconceptions too. And then there's also, like we talk about fake news. I have never seen so many CGI fake UFO videos.
Oh, yes.
on YouTube than I have seen over the past few years. And that was something early on. When I had the site and the YouTube channel, that was not they're everywhere. It is increasingly hard to find the real real sightings, that are being uploaded by real witnesses or vetted, by real investigators. A lot of it is just these CGI videos that are recycled. It is as if there's some factory creating just constant CGI, UFO videos, and so it gets increasingly hard to find the good videos, which unfortunately can be more boring. Yeah, so there is definitely that.
And I think, and in our earlier conversation, I was telling you how we came across you. Your channel was that there was some very high profile. I'm going to just say a couple of them. I'm not going to say the names. Yeah. But a couple of high profile sites, and I'll tell you after the show. We got vested in it, and all of a sudden it was like, okay, no, this is not. This is not.
It's clickbait material.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Like you said, the CGI. One of them was just like, that's a Borg cube. They're just taking advantage of people who've never watched Star Trek.
I made the mistake of featuring one of the really popular Texas. Well, what happened was I don't feature those CGI videos. Sometimes I will feature what might, could be a hoax, but because I'm not really sure and I really want the community to look at, and I don't have reason to believe it is. However, I really do not. And if it's a great sighting, man, I write up a good headline. I'm like you, Surlana, I feel I'm trying to entertain people too. Mm-hmm. I'm not just educating. I think this is a fun topic, and that's actually how you spread awareness. Is people need to click. I totally get that. As a journalist and entertainer, but I try to be as true, to the audience as I possibly can, and I do not feature something if I know that it is a hoax. I just don't, and so I miss out on a lot of clicks because of that. But that's okay. But I did make the mistake one time because there was one sighting that one of these channels just kept reporting on out of Texas, and I was just like, well, could this be real? They keep reporting on it. There keeps being new witnesses talking about it. And I put it on the site, and man, my community just tore me up. They're like, how dare you post this sighting? So it's so funny, the night and day, crafting, I'm so proud of my audience for, not wanting, to waste their time, because that's really what it is. You're just wasting your time, because there is a real phenomenon going on, and there are real things we can learn from it. So when we're spinning all our wheels, watching these, CGI videos, it just totally takes away from it. But I know for a fact that a lot of these, big channels, they'll just be posting all these sightings from Texas. And as I am really that first line of defense, with Texas UFO. So I am constantly checking YouTube, Google, MUFON for the latest reports in Texas. I get reports, myself as well. So if there's a huge mass sighting in Texas, most likely I'm going to hear about it. Right. Somebody's going to, message me and say they saw it. And with these sightings that you see on some of these channels, there's nothing. Crickets, but I'll hear about the blimp that happened in that town. So something's not right with these reports, and I don't know where they get the witnesses, and I'm sure I know there are real sightings in the mix too. That's kind of what makes it confusing, but that's definitely been a challenge.
Surlana had.
I was just wondering.
Yes.
Sorry, we do hand signals. That is it your turn?
We're over here doing the hand jive, and
Well, one of the things that struck me, as I think it's one of your more recent posts on your channel, was the video someone took. I guess they zoomed way in with their Canon or their camera of something that seems like it's above the moon, but it's hard to know. It's hard to know if that's sort of an illusion of something that's maybe nearer, but it just coincidentally looks like it's above the moon. But it was still a cool video.
Yeah, it was super interesting. And I saw somebody on, I don't know, Reddit somewhere suggest that maybe it could be like even a dying star or something, which, is an interesting theory. Yeah, I'm just in your same corner of just finding it super fascinating and As with this, you can imagine, explanations, but the thing that's interesting about that is that has just been such almost its own phenomenon lately is UFOs on and around the moon. And we talk about like telescopes getting like more high powered and cameras, getting more high powered. And so while it's still hard to take a good picture of a passenger plane at night, we can do some really amazing, like star photography and recording. And so I don't think it's that surprising. We must, find some real UFOs doing this. So I think that could be one of the more legit ones. But there's a lot online, UFOs at the moon, that I recommend people look into because it's interesting.
Well, speaking of the moon, there's a lot of moon conspiracy theories out there. What do you think about? What is the reason we've not been back to the moon? Here's China going and Japan and, whoever else is up there, but we haven't been back. And what do you also think about the notion that the moon is artificial or hollow and that there may be alien bases there? Yeah. I mean, to me, it's kind of all fair game. That's me sort of putting my, I'm the bartender of UFO conspiracy theories, trying to be the unbiased journalist, and I'll even read a flat earth theory from time to time just to I'll try to think of it that way. I'll try to think of something that way, but my take would be that of course we went to the moon. Not I can't really go with that hoax theory that we never went. I didn't even bother to ask you that one. Right. Thank you. That's so kind of you. But it's okay. I can preempt. It's okay. I would guess perhaps we went there, but maybe we found things or saw things that we weren't expecting, that maybe we weren't prepared to disclose to the American public, and also maybe we didn't want our foreign even allies, just foreign, countries knowing that we were aware of. Maybe we sort of did the math and realized, maybe they're aware of some of these things already. And then you think of the influence of the policy of secrecy that we had about UFOs, starting with Roswell. To me, it just appears that there very well could be something on the moon, so artificial, maybe. It's kind of all fair game of what they could be hiding. I have an article on the site about apparently sounds that were heard, on the far side of the moon by, I don't know exactly which number Apollo crew, but I believe it was Buzz Aldrin. I I'm afraid to, say something incorrect.
Yeah, because it's being recorded, and we'll play it back and over and said, "You were wrong." No, just kidding.
I know, right? It was a moon mission where it had to have been them. So then we're really getting into conspiracy theories, right? If it was a different, year. Yes, so that there were sounds heard, on the far side of the moon that sort of freaked the astronauts out, that they did not share with the American people. And you can actually read those transcripts now. And I've read quite a few astronaut transcripts, and it's super fascinating. You sometimes feel like you could be reading some code language at times, or, maybe they mean some other things, know some other things. I do know that as far as disclosure activists go, astronauts there's many of them. So the late, Edgar Mitchell was a UFO disclosure activist, really activist, not just advocate. I did not know, but the late John Glenn, there's a Frasier episode, which you guys have to find if you've not seen it already.
I think I've seen this
where
one, yeah.
He's talking about, and I think what he says in that Frasier episode may be kind of close to reality, because it seems to match up Well, essentially, he says, we saw things out there in space. Our bosses, really didn't know what to do about it. And we were sort of afraid to tell people. And he said, interestingly enough, that a lot of movies and TV shows are quite close to, what the reality is. And so he says that it's you'll have to go look it up on YouTube. But that scene seems like it's written on many levels. The whole joke is that Frasier's having, John Glenn on as a guest. And instead of listening to his guest, who's now going on air and giving the truth about UFOs on live radio, instead of Frasier getting the scoop, he's fighting with, and I can't remember the woman's name, his love interest. He's fighting with her while John Glenn is giving out the truth about UFOs to the American people. And there's a laugh track, over John Glenn, because that's the joke, right? Mm-hmm. But it sort of feels like the laugh track is making fun of the audience itself too. So it's quite interesting. Like, I highly would recommend people go and check that out, because so many astronauts have said things on record about alien life and UFOs. Buzz Aldrin said something about a monolith on Mars's moon. You can find that on, I don't know if it was CNN or Fox News, but it was some, news show like that. So there's been a number of quotes collected from astronauts. So when you look at the theories about the moon, it's hard not to look at it without looking at theories about UFOs. Something's going on.
Well, you say there's true. There's been a number of statements, but what about what they don't say? Now, the reason I ask you that is because I've just recently heard Linda Moulton Howe talk about speaking with, I can't remember the gentleman's name, who knew Neil Armstrong since they were teenagers, and he said when he went to visit Neil, right before he died, is that he went to Neil's house and Neil did not have any evidence that he had ever been in the space program. No photos of him as an astronaut, nothing. And they said, "What's going on? How come you've got no memorabilia, nothing?" He's like, "They made us promise not to say anything about something," and he was just like so devastated that he had to live this lie. He didn't want any reminders of being in the space program.
And that's interesting because you have an astronaut like that, and then you go to Buzz Aldrin, who is definitely just like out there. And
that's what she was saying. Neil, when he came back from the moon, just sort of went out of the public eye completely.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. I'm so sorry. I was actually looking up the Far Side of the Moon story for you guys because I wanted to give you... So it was Apollo 11 with Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong on the far side of the moon. So I just wanted to give that correct information.
Well, now you're on record.
Yes. But that's super fascinating that you say that. So Edgar Mitchell, going back to Edgar Mitchell, he apparently, let's see, he founded, I don't know what it's called. It's a consciousness and psychic sort of educational foundation, and apparently did experiments out in space on the other astronauts, like psychic little experiments and things, because of the state of not nirvana, but there's some term like that he experienced out in space. So it's interesting to think of not only the astronaut before they go to space, but how it changes them, once they go. And so Neil Armstrong, maybe he did or did not have the same, life-changing experiences. And so would talk about these things very differently. That's a really interesting theory.
Well, we're at the bottom of the hour. It goes quick around here, Jane. So you got to keep up. So let's go ahead and take our bottom of the hour break. And in fact, the bottom of the hour break is brought to you by Spaceboy Music, of all things. That's right, Spaceboy Music, where you can catch the latest new album of Spaceboy, and that is Unique Technique. It's got 17 amazing tracks that you can get into the groove into. And
Makes a great Christmas gift for Grandma.
Exactly. So pick up your copy at spaceboymusic.com for only $10. That's $10. So spaceboymusic.com, Unique Technique, available now.
You are listening to Spaceboy Universe on the SBU network.
Explore the universe with Spaceboy and Surlana. You are listening to Spaceboy Universe. Now here are your hosts, Spaceboy and Surlana.
As always, Space Cadets, you miss out on the interesting conversations that we have while we're on break. And, we were assuring Jan that you are Jane, thank you. She'll slap me later. Jane, that, we're kind of a laid-back group, and the Space Cadets are, just make sure she feels welcomed, and Dino, behave yourself. So, one of the things we were kind of talking about during the break, and I just thought we'd just say it in passing while we're, bringing it up, was Buzz Aldrin going down to the South Pole and having to be evacuated, and how we were talking about earlier about fake news, and that seems to be just everywhere you look now, fake news. And the conversation I was having with you was that, I thought, wow, that's interesting, but immediately my radar went up and started to drill down on the article and found that it was one of these sites that is known to be fake news related. But Surlana, you were bringing up the fact that, it could have been that he was down at the South Pole for different reasons. You want to elaborate about that? Well,
he's sort of an enthusiast of, I can't remember what's the famous expedition that went down there for the first time or something?
Operation Jump?
Well, I think it was when they were first exploring that piece of the world. I know I don't know if he was down there because he's an enthusiast of that explorer, or if it was for other reasons.
Well, you have the other incident that happened down in the Arctic with Admiral Byrd and and supposedly Nazi, base that was supposedly down there.
Supposedly an alien base.
Alien base,
too.
Yeah, so,
like there's a portal down there or something.
A lot of interesting subject matter and material on that particular subject. Maybe sometime we need to do a show on that, and maybe we can bring you back and have a round table discussion about that incident and talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, that'd be a fun one.
Mm-hmm.
That's a juicy one.
I think we did go to the moon, but I also think that NASA did things to cover up a lot because.
And did Stanley Kubrick help? Who helps?
We did a show about Kubrick conspiracies and whether or not he left clues as to whether he actually filmed and faked the landing. Of course, now his daughter comes out and talks about how absurd that is. She, got on social media and talked about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, standing up for her father. Yes, and I don't know if you guys have heard of Gary McKinnon.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And so it's interesting, he says that NASA, doctors photo, so that would, support that would probably NASA would have been doing it going back to, ever since we've been in space.
Mm-hmm.
So I would imagine. I don't think that would be a new.
The moon landings and the flybys they've done. There was a lady who came out as a whistleblower, and she said she was part of the ones that were, before Photoshop, we had that would physically paint these, the film cells before they got released to the public to cover up the bases and structures.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and I know with the Mars rover, on the live ISS feeds, people online have been finding all kinds of things. I tend to try to stay away from that stuff because to me it's all just a big ink blot.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You just see, all kinds of things, in the Mars, structures. But it's easy to imagine how things could be easily doctored or, photoshopped. I've seen some renderings where, or some people online will strip what they believe is the layer, just like you're saying, as if they're painting something over, the real structures or things. It's almost like you're looking at a blanket covering something. So, yeah, I'm open to that, but I have not found a smoking gun per se.
Right.
From Mars rover landing photos or videos yet. But I'm looking for it. I'd love to see that. Oh, look at that, green alien or, gray. I don't think the grays would be on Mars, though. I don't think the gray aliens would be there.
It's a chicken, I tell you. Yeah.
Some of It's amazing. There's one site in particular that I just can't wait to find out what he's found on Mars. It's always really interesting, the pictures by themselves, but his imagination is the fun part.
Yeah, it's so easy though, but like you were saying, your mind is trained to see things that really aren't there, and so once again, it's like combating that mind, your mind telling you that you're seeing this, but it's not.
We're so hardwired to recognize faces, facial features. So,
like in clouds,
yeah.
like, seeing things in the clouds and putting things together. And so, and when you're looking at landscape on Mars, I mean, it's
alien.
It's alien. It's different. I mean, you're not used to seeing
What
that.
are the natural processes that make those formations? Do we actually know do we fully understand all the processes there?
Well, I mean, I would say we don't even fully probably understand the processes here on Earth. That's always my, how I can deduce. So, I mean, I would guess we have a lot to learn.
And I think you could...
and it's going to get weirder and weirder.
You could fairly easily debunk a lot of the photographs, like, oh, this is a woman walking on Mars, and this is that, this is a shoe.
Yeah.
But the only one that I still want an explanation for is that weird crab spider-looking creature that's kind of tucked under an overhang. Yeah. That one, I'm like, okay, in graphic detail, like I'm a 2-year-old, explain to me the natural processes that create this.
Well, my favorite
There's definitely
one,
some weird stuff.
My favorite one is the one that looks like a turret on a tank, and I mean, it clearly looks like a pipe coming out, and I mean that formation is, I mean, what is the calculations or the numbers of getting something windblown and done to
that's perfect like that.
It's perfect like that.
That looks manufactured. You're saying?
Yes, exactly.
Well, and I know. So NASA has very clear plans to go to Mars. If you follow NASA on Instagram and their stories, they're pretty much just stating that. And they recently put out a bunch of posters that are like, funny, fictional and sort of amusing and entertaining, but they're Mars colonization posters.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, they look like, Mars colonization propaganda.
That's what I'm saying. Sound like propaganda posters.
Yeah. So I would guess that they're definitely conditioning, little kids today to sort of grow up with the idea of like maybe living on Mars, gardening on Mars and things. And we know like space flight is coming. We know Mars colonization is coming. And if we also know that UFOs are real or there's something to them, I mean, we don't know exactly what, it's hard not to see how that won't collide. And with all the broadcasting, of the Mars landscape, what role is that? If it plays a role in all of this, in disclosure, are we seeing little crab creatures? Are they slowly, making us aware that there's little crab creatures, living on Mars, and so just freaking us all out, with like a War of the Worlds like type of broadcast. So I have, like you, I've seen some weird things. But other than that, I'm kind of waiting for that big announcement. Not that there used to be Mars, water on Mars. I'm tired of hearing that.
Yeah.
That's been announced like 100,000 times.
Although the pictures were cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They take a long time to announce. They announce the same thing over and over and over again to get you kind of okay with that concept of there being water and life. So I think NASA thinks that we're comfortable with that. So it'd be interesting to watch, follow them on social media. I would recommend people do, to see what their next move is going to be. Because I think we've got the water on Mars thing done with, hopefully. Because that's been going around forever.
I don't know if NASA's like on our side or if they got their own agenda or who they're really working with. I'm not.
It's the $1 million question.
Mm-hmm. Are they just a little friendly space?
And that's hard in a sense because, I grew up, because I love space, obviously. considering that space is kind of the theme for me in all the entertainment we've been doing for the universe and for music and all this stuff. But it kind of leaves me heartbroken to think that NASA is deceiving us or just being the bad guy in reality. But then again, the $1 million question is to which master is NASA serving? And that is the $1 million question.
I would like to believe, and give NASA the benefit of the doubt that they have our best interest in mind and have disclosed, more of the truth than we give them credit. There seems, like that John Glenn Fraser episode, we were talking about a theme that I see. We've heard this from Tom DeLonge, and he does claim to be a government insider, and I think, literally speaking, he is. Military people are talking to him. We know from the WikiLeaks, he was at least trying to talk to Obama, as was Edgar Mitchell. That a theme is that there is a phenomenon, there is ET and or interdimensional, other life, but that the government has been, confused about it, maybe more than we think. Mm-hmm. And so there could be some tactics, to how they've given information or, what they've given us. And maybe it's not all sinister. I know that is the angle that Linda Moulton Howe has and that Tom DeLonge has. Now, is that part of some bigger design? We sort of go back to that Art Bell, Richard Hoagland interview that you were referring to, where, at the end of the day, we still really can't look to specific people for the truth because, even a well-intentioned, ufologist or a politician could be giving incorrect information.
And they not know it.
Unknowingly. Yeah, unknowingly. So, yeah, it gets more and more confusing. But with private spaceflight coming, more and more drones and, higher, powered cameras, I don't think that the lid on the truth can be held, down much longer.
Well, within regards to Tom DeLonge, I can tell you what I heard, and again, this is on YouTube, his more recent stuff, Stephen Greer. He says something to the effect, if I get this right, that Tom DeLonge is being fed info, like you said, from the inside to help get the younger people sort of ready and on board with all this concept of aliens. So he's like a recruiter without knowing it.
It would definitely make sense. If you go to his Twitter or Instagram, I listened to his album, Blink-182 back when I was, a teenage girl, so and they still are touring and have those fans, even though he is not touring with Blink-182 because of UFOs. It's so funny. I'm like, how am I following Tom DeLonge? Like, I'm not surprised, that I'm following Hillary Clinton, have to keep, an eye on what she's saying, but what is going on that I'm becoming this expert? So he has so many of that, the teenage girls, and they're the children to some extent, of the world. So that they're going to be the ones, colonizing Mars, right? Or the ones having to cope perhaps like with the reality of aliens and UFOs. And there is some, in the WikiLeaks, there is an exchange between Tom DeLonge and John Podesta, Hillary Clinton's, campaign advisor, Obama's former advisor, where they actually, I'll have to go, and I didn't write a story about this, but I'm pretty sure they use the exact phrase, secret plan. They say it is their secret plan to, the youth is a little cynical, about the government. And that was almost incidental to the truth about UFOs, that the real goal was really just to reduce the cynicism about the government. Now, if there is some sort of truth about UFOs coming out, maybe with or without the government, maybe it's just coming, and that you have not always been honest with the American people about it, it's probably going to be important that you've got a public relations team kind of going to bat for you and kind of getting ahead of it. So it definitely appears that there's some PR, media effort that is trying to get ahead of disclosure and paint the government as, yes, maybe they were dishonest with you, but it was all in your best interest because there is bad ET. And that has been the general theme of Hal and DeLong. And then you're going to have Greer, who will say that they're being misled. Michael Horn would say they're being misled. So then you end up sort of chasing your tail in this kind of circle of who's being misled. And I would suggest that they all are, perhaps. We all are. I think that's probably the safest route to go. But I definitely don't hold that NASA is evil or that the government is evil. The more that I've researched, I don't really, I feel less and less comfortable going down that path because it just doesn't seem to be the case. I think there is evil and there are people who are corrupted, that are working on every side of the coin. But I do think there's a real phenomenon that has really challenged CIA, scientists, and that we might need to help them face it.
Right. It's confusing to me, someone who I don't necessarily believe in much of this, but I'm like, okay, so I'm trying to keep an open mind. Then you've got people like Greer saying, no, there are only good ETs out there, and I've met them.
Hard to believe, right?
Yeah, and then you've got, is it Wilcock that's saying,
yes.
No, there's these other ones that are leeching off of your negativity, like vampires.
Like
and
the Loosh.
The Loosh,
yes.
Which I kind of believe, But so you got one people saying, no, there's actually 15 races, and there's this, and then this one is at war with that one. I'm like, okay, y'all need to get together and make up your mind. What's this real story,
It is.
And that's trying to sift through the things that sound somewhat plausible to, like, what you've been smoking, and to,
Do you watch Star Trek?
Oh, goodness. I'm sitting here in a Star Trek shirt, Jane.
Do not attack me, but I have a goal. I don't want to say New Year's resolution because then it won't happen. But me and my husband are going to watch, because we're in the Star Wars universe and we're a Star Wars family. Mm-hmm. It's just set, it's just, no around it. But I have always wanted to get into Star Trek, and I'm not in right now. I'm not a Trekkie right now, but maybe that will be different in the future. And we're going to, just start from scratch with the series, because I've always wanted to. But then also, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Gene Roddenberry's history with the government.
Mm-hmm. A little bit. I've gotten into some videos on his backstory about some of his stuff.
He was a plane crash investigator.
Yeah.
So he was a plane crash investigator for the military. Now, of course, this is assumption upon assumptions. So, Surlana, you may not be able to, do the, follow me here. But it does appear that there were dozens and dozens of ET crashes around the 40s and 50s, all similar to Roswell. It does appear, I've read so many apparently leaked documents. There was even one in Hungary, actually, and there was another wave sort of in the 60s and 70s and one in Hungary that I was lucky enough to find on MUFON, and actually nobody had found before. And they're all very similar, apparently with these grays aliens, and some even speculate that the gray aliens could be androids. Right. Now, so if we so here we have this, I don't know exactly what his rank was or specific role, but this plane crash investigator, was it during the 40s and 50s or before the 60s? He very well could have ended up at some of these ET crash sites. And then shortly after that, you have the Star Trek series. Well, there has been separately a lot of rumor. I don't know, Linda Moulton Howell's one of the researchers who's brought this forward, that Roddenberry was essentially hired by the government to do Star Trek as a means of conditioning people,
yes.
a space exploring reality, and that Star Wars similarly and Spielberg were, sort of part of that kind of group of people.
Spielberg knows. He definitely knows.
Yes, if you look at things through the Force and, perhaps a much bigger universe than there really is.
Trying to tell it to us in allegories, yeah.
Yes. I think that's actually a lot more intuitive and makes a lot more sense. That we're just this single, as Carl Sagan would put it, just this little pale dot. Just this lucky pale dot. I'm
trying so hard not to talk over you because you've mentioned the trigger word Star Trek. But
I know I had.
There's an even deeper.
Go for it.
It's a 2-part. I keep going back to YouTube because that's where everything is. I fell asleep through part of it, so I didn't finish it all. But there's a deeper, darker, sinister bit to Gene Roddenberry's story and Star Trek. Something about the Council of Nine or the Circle of Nine and it's all part of the propaganda, like you say, to try to get this agenda out, and it's trying to make us be aware that there's other entities out there, and it's not necessarily probably going to be good for me, but there's a lot of themes in Star Trek that they explore from this, and so I was just before I passed out. He says why the number 9 keeps coming up in these episodes and these things like Star Trek, Deep Space 9. That's not an accident. So go try to look all that up, or I'll find him again. I'll email him to you. But there's a dark side of it too, and also intrigued by that. But if you start watching Star Trek and you start with the original series, don't let that put you off. Because it's the 60s, it's cheesy.
Growing up, so yeah. I've always watched it growing up. Whenever it was like randomly on. So I'm hoping I'm not going into it with wrong expectations.
There are some really good episodes that really make you think. Mm-hmm. They're really deeper. There's some amazing episodes in The Next Generation, and then there's some just, what? This is silly.
I would have to say the pinnacle of the best Trek that's written is probably going to be from the Deep Space Nine era.
And that's going to be difficult because it's not all happy and light and hand-holdy, huggy, touchy-feely from TNG and from the original, because it's war. It's about war.
Yeah.
And then Voyager's all struggling to get back home, and,
And it's been a long time since we've ever watched another.
And then there's Enterprise, which has the worst opening theme music of any sci-fi show
all the
ever.
Shows, yes.
Yeah. That's why he phrased it, though.
To keep this all in mind.
Yeah.
But
I can't wait to get into it. And I'm just curious because it seems like, if you go along this whole... Because Spielberg is another one that's just... I put it together an article of, movies to watch before UFO disclosure happens. And so I picked some movies that have some real theories behind them. Close Encounters of the Third Kind is one. The plot synopsis to Close Encounters of the Third Kind is that a man sees a UFO. It makes him go crazy, and he gives up his family to go pursue the truth about it. Mm-hmm. This feels so... close to home, but I'm not giving up my family. But Spielberg is, there's been, some rumored quotes from him over the years that he knew some things.
Yes, that's what I heard.
And that E.T. was, maybe more based on realities. If we go that, and although, Spielberg did not do Star Wars, he's good friends with Lucas. And just that trio, I guess, of sci-fi, filmmakers, Star Wars, and this is one of the many reasons I want to watch Star Trek. It seems like Star Wars sort of speaks to more the Force and a spiritual God of some kind, or a universal force. And it seems to me that, at least when I've watched Star Trek just casually, it feels more of a humanist take.
They're
and so
exploring.
I think that's interesting that we have these two, overlapping but feels like it conflicts, but it doesn't.
Well, you could make a case for for both. Star Trek explores the human condition and human issues and problems under the guise of alien races, but it's basically our problems.
And where Star Wars is more of the spiritual,
we're all
way
connected
of the universe.
to the Force, to the consciousness.
And in all fairness, I enjoy both. I mean,
and that's the good. That's the good part. That's the nice, touchy-feely, hand-holding the Force. Now, the dark side of that is you come back to Star Trek and you have the Borg, which is an all-connected hive mind, all doing one thing, one mission, and you can't deviate. And everything that's individual about you and interesting and special is stripped away.
Yeah, that's super interesting to me. And it's almost, and there's always been that divide too between the Trekkies, and the Star Wars, people, and it has to be rooted in more than just a different, take on fantasy.
I'll give you an assignment. Watch these and contrast them with Star Wars, and start looking for themes like, just because we're both women, what are women's roles? How are they treated? Look at the shows from the 60s versus the coming through the 90s and 2000s. What happens to women's roles in Star Trek as they progress from the 60s to the 2000s? That's really interesting.
Yeah.
So on that note, because it is so interesting, is that we're at the top of the hour, and like we're at warp speed trying to get through the show. So I would say hold tight, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be right back after this musical interlude, and don't go nowhere. And that is another track from the Spaceboy music CD or album or whatever you want to call it, called Unique Technique. And right before I hit the unmute button, I can get you hooked up with a copy of that, Jane, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I have this thing called Gene Wilder syndrome.
Gene Hackman syndrome. He doesn't even know the name of his own syndrome.
See, that's how bad it is. And, back in our show archive, I mix the two up, and I have a tendency to do that when I get excited because it's fun, doing this. But
if you want a deep explanation of that, you can go to our anniversary show back in September, and at the end, it gets explained in the best of clips that we put in there.
Yeah, but I'll be glad to send you a free copy of my new album, and we'll get you hooked up to that. But yeah, for everybody else out there,
whether you want it or not,
for everybody else, it's $10 on SpaceboyMusic.com. 17 amazing tracks, and as you can tell, I'm excited about it, and because I'm already started working on the next album, so I need to fund the next album, so pay for this album now, and I'll get working on the next one. So while we were at break, we were nerding out about Star Wars and Star Trek, and do you want to take it from there, Surlana?
I was just wanting to know, since we've got her, we can pick her brain. What about subjects like time travel? Do you believe that's possible?
Yeah, like I said, I've always been a super open-minded person. I don't think there's any other state of mind I can have. It's just born that way. So to me, it's just nothing sounds crazy. I'm just like, oh, that could totally happen. But because of researching UFOs, it has led me down quite the rabbit hole. And because it seems to relate to just about everything, ghosts, Bigfoot, just about like every conspiracy, you could find, Illuminati, it all seems to relate to each other. And so time travel almost seems to be at the core of all of it. If you think of time as a dimension, well, if ET is interdimensional, then
blows my mind.
Right? Yeah. It just kind of, and I don't know how much you guys are. Well, if you've watched Back to the Future recently, there's some crazy YouTube videos.
Just not familiar with that show.
Yeah, there's some crazy. More recently though, there's some crazy YouTube videos that bring some things that film series actually seems to have predicted, and especially with the Trump presidency, and the Biff, presidency, right, which was on record, and we know Simpsons.
Oh yeah.
Too.
Oh yeah.
Which is anybody, it's into Mandela effect. Simpsons has also done every single one of the major Mandela effects has been referenced in their show. So it does, on even just that level, it appears that there could be some people in Hollywood or, up top that seem to know about events that come. Now, are they making events happen? Is it just reality reflecting art? Is it that they have some kind of crystal ball that they were looking into, back when they were making those movies? And then the more you sort of talk it out, it kind of just circles back to itself. Because let's say reality is reflecting art. Well, time travel just might as well exist. Seems like we can just kind of imagine anything and it will happen. So it just all kind of gets crazy. But yeah, I think time travel's totally on the table. Completely.
We end up having discussions/arguments about once a month between my husband and I about time travel.
Like, who would win in a fight between Lizzie Borden and Helen Keller?
Now, if you're not a Venture Brothers fan, you won't know what that means.
But yeah, that's kind of the extent of our conversations, and
I can't wrap my head around time as a dimension.
I don't think we can. I don't think our human brains are capable of it.
Well, I'm a liberal arts major, so I can't do math and science anyway, even basic stuff, chemistry, calculus, algebra, none of that. Nothing without a calculator. So maybe it's just that I'm just not wired that way, but I tried. I've looked up some websites and I tried to really understand it, and I went, yep, this ain't for me. It's not for my little brain, you know.
I don't think I don't think we like can comprehend it, and it's so funny. I'm like you. I think I enjoy math, but what I enjoy is having a calculator or like an Excel sheet. I can't like do it. We had a garage sale today, and my husband wanted me to man it briefly, and I just was like deer in headlights, like pulling up my calculator on my phone. He's like, I don't need a calculator. Like, what are you doing? So I felt so stupid. But as I know, a leading theory about UFOs, or not leading theory, just one of the theories is that we could be seeing crafts or like observers from other times.
Yes, could be us.
Coming back, and that could be why it's so strange. And if you consider that, let's say, what if we're seeing things sometimes that our brain can't process? So if it's something coming in from another time or dimension, maybe we almost like collectively hallucinate about it. I've seen that theory, so maybe we all see, similar, saucers or things.
A quick thing to describe would be a two-dimensional being. If you, as a three-dimensional being, pushing a pin through a two-dimensional plane, they would just see this line, come out of nowhere and then disappear. So from us, anything higher than our third-dimensional, world that we're living in, would be kind of similar to that two-dimensional being.
He doesn't know, but he's actually explaining the plot to a book called Flatland that they make you read in college algebra sometimes.
Oh, yeah?
So if you're extremely deeply math nerdy, check out Flatland. It's about two-dimensional beings trying to perceive three-dimensional, like flat circles and squares trying to perceive spheres and cubes.
Have you guys seen Inside Out, that Pixar movie?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
It's great. It reminds me of that scene where they go in the abstract, like they get all abstracted and they're gradually, falling apart. But yeah, I mean, that's a total possibility. This was a big topic at AlienCon. As you can tell, I had a blast at AlienCon. I can't wait till next year. I think it's going to be a real big event going forward. But that Bigfoot, is interdimensional.
I've heard that theory.
And that makes a lot of sense why we can't find a body. And if you think of E.T. the same way, why can't we ever find a body? Or why can't we get a good photo? And I've actually, unfortunately, never seen a UFO or an alien or anything like that. I've seen things that look weird, but I've kind of able to do it in my head. Oh, that could be a plane, maybe approaching me and then turning, things like that. But the one thing I did see, it's my own two eyes in real time, is you can go on and find webcams of earthquakes. Or not earthquakes, of earthquake lights, all the time. They're just appear, over volcanoes and mountains, and there's actually like a scientific term now. There's ball lightning, it's kind of similar, and it creates this, effect of just these orbs of light, behaving kind of oddly. And so I was watching a volcano cam, and just witnessing just all these, orbs of light above this volcano going in and out of it, hovering, just doing all of these strange things. And, I was able to get screenshots, and indeed you go online and this is an ongoing phenomenon, seen similar objects in UFOs before and after the 2011 Japan tsunami, as well as other natural disasters. So that's one of the more persistent UFO phenomenons that I've seen, that you can even find some scientific agreement on, that there's something going on, and that I've seen with my two eyes. And that, to me, if there is any organic life or anything going on with that, that's got to be something interdimensional. That's got to be something just on a whole other level. That's not like a metal craft with a gray alien in it. but these orbs do sometimes appear to be intelligent, though. So it's not just this, strange lights popping up, over mountains. You'll see orbs that seem to move intelligently and almost survey areas and things. And so that, to me, feels like a much less tangible phenomenon than, a flying saucer. And that's actually the one I seem to come across more than not.
Have you heard of or theory or somebody talking about how some UFO craft seem to be attracted to like thunderstorms because maybe they're getting a charge off the lightning
or power lines?
Or power lines.
I think that's a good theory. There definitely is a correlation with some of the better sightings and thunderstorms. In Houston, actually, there was a ring of lights seen, I think, in a thunderstorm. Like I was saying, earthquakes, floods. We also have seen this, not necessarily natural disasters, but we know that there's a correlation with UFOs appearing around like nuclear power plants and, sites where, there could be risk of like nuclear destruction. So there definitely appears to be some correlation with UFOs and energy, however you want to say it, or electricity, for better or worse. Of course, that then goes into, is there some kind of energy on the Earth, too, that these UFOs could charge themselves on? Maybe not just thunderstorms, but specific spots, on the planet. Could the Great Pyramid, be one? And all those sacred sites, and it's fascinating. It's weird that kind of stuff actually seems to be the more documented, where the typical crafts that maybe remind us of something that we could build are really more the exception to the rule.
What is your take on, this is another thing I heard Greer talk about. He said some of these, the triangles may be man-made, and he says how you know is if you're lucky enough to get a photograph where you can see the underlying structures, if you could see seams and rivets and pipes, he goes, that's how you know it's man-made. But the things that are seamless, he goes, think of 3D printing from another dimension. Do you think that might have some good weight for as a theory?
It makes sense to me. I mean, the more advanced you get, the more sort of ethereal, your crafts would be. And that I've seen both reports, and they both feel very different. There's the and of course the darker solid crafts are the ones we seem to get the photos and videos of, and those reports feel a certain way. I remember one discussing a craft actually wobbling, as if it was had just been hit by another craft or something, struggling. But then you see reports of transparent triangle crafts. And those tend to really spook people out more so than the dark, solid crafts. And I mean, I would have the same. I think we're also sort of going on what we're speculating on what people are seeing. But I definitely would agree with Greer that there are both types of crafts. And they both almost seem just as consistently reported.
Fascinating. So
we had a caller, but Skype is doing that cute little thing
where it
won't give me the add to group call button. So if you're trying to call in, if you've got Twitter, private message me at Surlana and with your phone number, and I'll see if I can
patch you through,
pull it in, because we have to do this with Quantum Hologram Matrix show. We have to reverse engineer it, and I don't know what Skype's problem is.
We'll probably have to do some research, but
I just don't know.
Terrible, but here's a random question from Opportunity Optimist from our Twitter page. I guess this person is saying, why would UFOs probably exponentially more advanced need lights to see? So I guess they're kind of commenting on, why do they need lights on a UFO, or what's the big deal with lights? What's the big deal with lights?
Well, there's just so many unknowns. And I mean, if you go back to, it does appear that UFOs have changed forms, over the years. So that would sort of support that they've been getting more advanced. But why do there ever need to be flying saucers? That was, back, talk about hokey looking. But then you notice a lot of the flying saucer sightings, they're wobbling.
Right.
So if you go back to, well, maybe we don't understand, their physics. We understand our physics. I'm not sure what the clash is between their physics, their world or dimension that they're coming from and ours, and what kinds of effects that could have, or what kinds of challenges that could have. I would gather that going from one planet to another, if they're doing that, it would be through something like wormholes, right? Or time travel, which is almost the same thing, right?
Right.
But maybe there's another type of craft. Maybe they want to look like a plane sometimes. I've heard that theory. Maybe there's a more terrestrial type of craft that they then, in Roswell, there was Pod came off the main craft. And that's a common thing where you have these much more gigantic saucers. But by the way, they seem to be able to go completely invisible dark. So even a lot of these crafts that have lights, or another common theme on these crafts are Egyptian hieroglyphics, or hieroglyphs, things that look like that. Why? Well, maybe there's, I think these are all good questions. Could they all be man-made? I think that's always a valid theory, and it actually just leads to more questions.
It does.
There's, a lot of people believe in reptilians. David Icke would be, your leader if you believe in the reptilians. And they have theorized that the gray aliens are androids. So they're just kind of little robots going off in, their little satellite ships. So, just keep doing the math of how we're progressing as humans, and, we're sending satellites off to Mars, and they're, hardware, and they're, physical objects. And what if there's more than one species? Some with crafts with lights. Just your imagination can take you to some pretty amazing places.
Well, you're saying,
if you give it enough thought.
Yeah, if you were saying some of these could be us from the future, that seems to be the prevailing theme around the Rendlesham Forest incident that Molten Hal is always, that seems to be her baby.
And that had the hieroglyphs.
And it had those hieroglyphs. And he thinks they're coming back to get something, or, and also the whole John Teeter thing.
Yeah, oh my gosh. The John Teeter, that was some of the most fascinating read. No matter what you think, go read. If you've not read,
story.
Through all of those, it's just great. I heard they were going to make a play or something about it at some point. I don't know if they ever did, but
yeah, there was a movie that was supposed to be done, and it didn't. It hadn't been made. And the subject matter is really quite interesting. And although at some points where you say, well, that didn't happen, well, in the storyline, it basically is described that as John has gone back into the past, you have this variance. As the further you go into the past, the more the variance of the time stream he was from. So it's conceivable that there were some things that maybe he got to this particular time, back in the, 1999, 2000, when he was talking with Art on the phone.
He's trying to go to 75 first.
Yeah, well, to retrieve that IBM machine.
Then he came back just to hang out at 90-something.
But the point I was trying to make is that because this time stream, there might have been some things that were kind of like, okay, this is similar, but maybe in this timeline it didn't happen that way. Or maybe there was enough of what we call the butterfly effect that it changed from that point
Mandela
forward. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, totally. I mean, the bottom line is that we know that time, and well, I mean, all of our senses, we're just full of illusions. We're just filtering, reality constantly. Like that's how we can survive and like function. And so, I mean, time is an illusion to a degree, and it would be the most powerful thing, if you could manipulate it. So, it's hard not to think that, secret societies and, scientists, throughout ancient times, that we've not tried to find ways to manipulate time. So whenever I see, it's kind of like, well, where's the cancer cure? Well, who benefits from the cancer cure? There's a lot of, great doctors and great medicine, that I guess you could say benefit, from there not being a cure to cancer. And these sort of mysterious things we talk about, the meaning of life, time travel, to me, the fact that we don't have more answers, to me, suggests that there could be some answers out there that have been kept from us, that have been hidden from us, because these are such intuitive questions we have. We just crave the answers. We seem built to have the answers and to ask these questions. And so to me, it's suspicious. Tesla was doing so much around free energy, so long ago. Why haven't we come farther since then? CERN's, knocking at it. When did they announce the God particle? So I'm just waiting for those big breakthrough announcements that just never quite happen. You get close. Maybe they're, quantum physics, maybe there's other dimensions, but we never quite get that meaty, breakthrough discovery. And to me, that's kind of suspicious.
And I think that all stems from the people who have power and control, is because they're so entrenched in their own greed. Like I said, they're making profits off of all that cancer medication and treatments, because it's a multi-billion business. And like, why would you want to give that up to save a life when you can have all that money and power?
Mm-hmm.
And
it's fragmented. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But there's also a theory about there that our government doesn't want things like marijuana legalized on a national scale, because they're making such a big profit off of the cartels from the back end, because that would absolutely kill their money-making things they're using to help fund other things we're not supposed to know about.
Yes, follow the money trail. So as with any of these, big questions like, are UFOs real? Is time travel real? All these questions, the fact that we just come up empty so much, no matter how many times we go to the well, for answers, to me means, well, maybe somebody's holding them somewhere, and somebody's got more of these puzzle pieces, located somewhere, and is trying to, and I can't think of any, time travel. I mean, if you could travel through time, I don't know, can't think of many bigger, abilities or powers to cover up and hoard. And there could be fear too. So, going back to why are UFOs covered up, if they are real, and, citing, kind of going with what Tom DeLonge and Linda Moulton Howe have said, that these discoveries are powerful and might even scare, high-level officials. We know that MK Ultra was real. Who knows, did it really stop happening? Did we stop MK Ultra, or did it go underground? What kinds of crazy things, has our government discovered and maybe been a little freaked out about? And so maybe not wanted, people, for example, that South Pole story of Buzz Aldrin, turned out to be a fake news story, but, let's say that's real, that there's some kind of hellish, world down there, and let's say you're the president, of the country, and you just found that out. Are you just eager to go tell the American people? Probably not. So, there's probably there's some scary things, relating to time travel, and if we were to view things, our reality that way, it might freak us out a little bit.
All right. Well, we're at the bottom of the hour, and so let's take our final break of the evening, and when we come back, we'll have final thoughts with our guest, UFO researcher Jane Kyle, and don't go anywhere.
You are listening to Spaceboy Universe. Now here are your hosts, Spaceboy and Surlana.
Hey Jane, one of our regular listeners is in our chat had a question for you that there says there's a guy named Ed who posts a lot of his close encounters I guess he films, and he does it on another one of these big name YouTube channels. Mm-hmm. And he wanted to know if you knew of that person or had an opinion.
Mm-hmm. Ed. It doesn't ring a bell.
I'm trying to find his comment.
Well, the person Voth is... Ed has one of the guy Voth. I think who took him to Mars and other places in several years out of Florida, and I guess he's kind of thinking about.
Who has been showing all these videos of his close encounters. He phoned into some of these other UFO blog shows. That's all.
To check it out. It's possible. I have. I don't know what you have, Jim. The Gene Hackman, Gene Wilder syndrome, which is great for the field I'm in, right? Mm-hmm. But I will lose names and things like that. Mm-hmm. You know, maybe if I saw his picture or was thinking of a specific case, it would ring a bell. Mm-hmm. I'm happy to look at it, you know, afterward. But there are a lot of great, I think, credible channels that are doing their best to put out sightings and don't purposely put out hoaxes, you know, but still do on accident just because it is so hard and there is so much going on, and, you know, maybe somebody sends you something and you give too much benefit of the doubt. So I don't want to throw, you know, the whole the whole sensational, you know, community under the bus. There's a lot of good investigation, and there's a lot of people just posting a lot and being sincere and being honest, but maybe getting a little too enthusiastic about things like lens flares, or the, Planet X, Nibiru is just always there, like in the corner of your photo. It's just, it's almost got us, guys. So just to be wary and not necessarily get frustrated at people, and to be encouraging and just to lend a skeptical comment, here and there, because it will be important that we all, try to filter through, the junk and get to the
really
better.
Really difficult to do that. But then you'll get these videos that are. There was one in Brazil that happened at a gas station that looked like sort of like a ghostly UFO thing caught on security cam, and you're like,
yes,
that is cool. I don't care if it isn't real. That's cool. That could have easily been a drone, somebody dressed up, and a trick of the lighting and with a camera may have been malfunctioning. And there's that famous one I'm sure you're aware of these strange white bat-like beings that are walking across this gentleman's front yard, and they caught a similar one at
Skinwalker.
Well, it was just a weird. It's like, imagine if a bat was walking with its wings. And it's sort of white,
like all contorted.
Yeah, and it's caught at Yellowstone's night vision cameras at night. These two weird spindly creatures that are moving so strangely, like it's almost like somebody on stilts, but it's like they've got a head and just these two wingy appendages that they're walking on, and that's it. There's no torso.
Duno's confirming it was about the two stick walking creatures on camera at Yosemite.
Stick walking, that's right. That was what I was thinking. The totally different.
Those are tough because how do you try and recreate that? Like, how do you get something that looks like that? Is it a puppet? Is it CGI?
Is it a clothespin?
Yeah, it's but it's really super cool to look at. You're like, I want it to be real, but if it's not, this is really cool. Let's make this into something more. And I want to see the movie or the series.
And I mean, there's still sometimes like new pictures of what might be the Loch Ness, and I know I've seen like pictures of fairies recently, or a fairy, little like bug-like creature, that was caught and is being studied right now by somebody to find out what that is all about. So I mean, it's pretty endless on the internet, and in alien worlds, if you go back in time to before CGI was really amazing, that's kind of what is interesting about some of the videos of aliens, because they predate, Amazing Hollywood and, the amateur filmmaking on YouTube. And if you take that ET is real, which I still try to it may not sound like it, but I do try to remain objective and consider that they could not be. But if it is real and being covered up, one of the best tactics for that, and this is stated really, by CIA. You can find many government documents that talk about, these tactics, just disinformation. If something's going to come out, if there's a real alien and there's a video of it and it comes out, the best way, to debunk it is to say it's fake. Because honestly, who's going to argue with you? That's a pretty easy explanation. You can always get away with that. You can actually find a BBC article talking about how the Rendlesham UFO is a hoax. And we know it is not a hoax. Maybe you don't think it's aliens, but we know now that was not a hoax. And so that happened with Phoenix Lights. Over and over and over again. Roswell, classic. If we get a raw sort of hint of reality of a report in the newspaper and all of a sudden it's hoax. That is one of the easiest ways to quiet a case, because anybody then, saying it's real kind of feels silly. They're gullible. They're believing a fake story, and it's quite easy to get somebody to say they hoaxed something, or to hire somebody So when you add in that, this whole fake news, drama that's playing out, and you add in that disinformation is a very real, tactic, understandably, honestly, that the government uses and employs regularly, then you're just looking at it gets really, then it just gets really, really hard to sift through what's real and what's not real. But for those who haven't seen it, you can go look up, I think it's Skinny Bob or that gray alien from Roswell area, and there's apparent video of him, and that would have been before, honestly, it looks like an amazing Jim Henson, mixed with sort of CGI video, that's been around for a long time, and some suspect that could be a real video and that the hox story is not correct, but that's up to interpretation.
There's some that they say, oh, here's a video of an alien in this blah blah blah, and you go and you look at it, I'm like, that's from a music video. I know that music video. I know that song. Like, how could you be the one person in the world that doesn't know that?
Or like Independence Day. I love the UFO mass sightings, and it's like from some sci-fi alien Hollywood movie, and they've juxtaposed some just like normal crowd with it. But yeah, it's pretty amazing.
In the chat, Dennis just mentioned Spaceboy's trigger, which is fact or faked. He's like closed his eyes, like, no.
I struggle with those shows.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of like in the same vein that I struggle with, which is in the headline Snopes, because sometimes it feels like a very disingenuous, sometimes effort to debunk things. They don't fully test it. But it was still, I enjoyed that show though. It was entertaining.
I watched the show too, and it was entertaining. But I think for me, it was
I got really irritated with them.
I did get irritated with them, but it's kind of like their sole mission was to debunk everything, and not keep. And that's what really gets my goat is that when people just automatically get closed-minded and not keep an open mind to the possibilities of what else it could be, and and just because it might be something beyond their thinking or their paradigm, that it's okay. It's not going to be the end of the world.
Yes, well, and I guess you could call him the founder of ufology, Dr. Joseph Allen Hynek, who was a member of Project Blue Book, and he's on record of saying that Project Blue Book, which was kind of like the government's MUFON, for those of who don't know, kind of like MUFON before MUFON existed, and it was an official government agency to investigate UFOs. He said that the purpose of that organization was to debunk them. So I think this policy of secrecy and hired debunkers, so, sort of pretend, if you will, sort of having the pretense of being a truth seeker and UFO researcher really ends up debunking things, is definitely a mechanism that is used by the government, and I can't really blame them. It's pretty effective. It's pretty darn effective. I don't know if you've seen the new Ghostbusters. I'm fine with giving away spoilers because I know a lot of you weren't even fans of it. There's no kids listening, but Bill Murray makes a nice cameo in it, sort of in that role. Right. Yeah, and so that the Men in Black appear to be real. Whether or not ET is real, I don't claim to be a contactee like a lot of people. When that happens, I promise you guys can believe me, because I would love to say, I think I would love to say I was a contactee. So far, I've never, shaken a hand with an alien, but there definitely appears to be a cover-up, of some kind, and some kind of gatekeeper. Mm-hmm. That I'm darn sure of, that there's, Men in Black, of some variety.
I've heard of Men in Black as far as, from like some secret government, like from our government to keep things. And then I've heard of the men in black who are not men. They're just dressed in black, but they seem like they're wearing a skin. And one of them talked about how they saw this man in black, but when they turned sideways, the thing was like paper thin, like they were hanging off of a coat hanger. And I was like, yeah, it was just like, what? And that's when I have to go, well, you're just having a bad night or something?
Yeah, well, the men in black, I was sort of, of course, that brings up, all that imagery and stuff. As far as disinformation, I know that to be, undoubtedly is real. But as well, the men in black have been reported. I typically don't get reports, have really not gotten reports of that ever. But within the past year, we've had a report out of McAllen. Iowa, I was just looking at some recent ones, Tennessee, Houston, specifically of men in black and these often after UFO encounters. I'm trying to bring up the one in McAllen now. Let's see, the one in McAllen was November. They saw some jet-like planes, and then they witnessed, what looked to be men in black. And they definitely men in black, and apparently there's women in black too. Coast to Coast AM actually did a really great thing on that recently.
Well, good. They at least are getting diversified.
Right, showing up, not just UFO sightings, but all kinds of just paranormal sightings and weird occurrences and being weird themselves. So they're being kind of this human, maybe gatekeeper and then also this inhuman that maybe doesn't even know how to act like a person and is pretending to be. That seems to be the theme. And it doesn't appear that they're really all that threatening, because for as many reports as there are, it seems like everybody's fine. I know there was a report of that UFO researcher that died recently under mysterious circumstances. But for the most part, it seems like there's a gazillion ufologists right now investigating this in the world, and they're all fine. So, yeah, there's a cover-up happening to some degree. But I'm not afraid of any men in black. I'll just say that. They don't seem to have much of effect on anything. Everybody's still blowing their cover and reporting them. So
they just come across very odd in how they appear, and then they disappear. I don't think I've heard any evidence of men in black being threatening in any way, fashion, or form. It's always just extremely odd behavior.
Maybe just wanting to find out what happened. Maybe just wanting to get in contact, with that witness of that encounter, and get some information or monitor. But yeah, that is it's strange that that's been getting reported. And of course, that's been getting reported with an increase in sightings. There was a triangle UFO sighting in Wales. Was not correlated with the Men in Black sighting, but was correlated with the British Ministry of Defense. Not maybe necessarily being excited about that sighting being out there. I won't really actually go into it any more than that. But yeah, so that's, along with the increased UFO sightings, there appears to be increased presence of people, military, government showing up as well.
Well, another recent, I'd heard this a few years back before. I don't know if there was a time where Linda had her website Earth Files more open, but everything's behind a paywall now, which I understand. It's probably not cheap to run that, but I found on YouTube just so randomly a story that really intrigued me, and it was supposedly this trucker witnessed at night an actual cattle possible mutilation happening in progress.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and it's one of these older stories where he talks about this bizarre-looking creature had enveloped a cow from its back all under its underside and was like actively, I don't know, just draining the life out of this cow. And he's just driving along at night alone in his rig, doing his rounds. And it is just like the freakiest story. I don't know if you've heard any of those or...
You know what? It's so strange. I have, in Texas, people have cattle. So I have a few reports like that on the site. It's not the more common thing. I don't know, though. It is happening, though. I just don't think people necessarily always, report it as a paranormal sighting or event when they discover cattle mutilation. I have not seen reports where they actually witnessed it happening. It's an after the fact, is what I have seen. I know that there was, remember that show UFO Hunters?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I think it, again, I'm not going to bring up my browser window and accidentally get an ad playing to fact check this.
I can tell Jane about ad blocker.
right, exactly. One of those shows, UFO Hunters, I think, but I can't be 100%. One of those shows, not fact or faked, one of the better ones.
Yeah, Bill Burns was in this particular.
Yeah, it could have even been No, I think it was UFO Hunters. We're discouraged from going down that path.
Yes, it was Bill Burns and his group.
Yeah.
And they ended up, I guess, was History Channel, I guess.
Yes.
Yes. They decided to go ahead and cancel the show. Yep. Because they had gotten too deep into...
there was more leaves unturned.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that.
So that to me, and I think the fact that we don't see much on that, but I think the things we get a lot of information on, we get a lot of news coverage on, could very well be the more distracting things. And the things that maybe scare us a little more and that aren't as fun to talk about. Unfortunately... there might be more to that.
Well, it's like, for example, the Dulce Wars is a fascinating subject of our military going down into a base that was supposedly
that's sinister.
Occupied with aliens and having to take the base back over because of something that happened and set the aliens off on the military personnel there. So many fascinating different stories that are out there.
Mm-hmm. And they're all kind of overlap and are similar, and that's what kind of makes it eerier, right?
Indeed.
I was wondering...
You almost want them to all disagree, right? Mm-hmm. And it seemed just to be all these separate farces, but unfortunately, the more we're hearing, the more these stories are coming together. Especially with the increasing amount of whistleblowers at Roswell. There was a great Roswell panel at Alien Con. The family, the grandchildren of General Jesse Marcel,
mm-hmm.
Who's the one, filmed, holding those, yeah. Mm-hmm. So they had some new revelations about that, and they mentioned the hieroglyphs, on the craft pieces, which is similar to Rendlesham. And then again, we hear the repeating themes of the gray aliens just keep coming up. So there, could be something to that. You almost want the stories to be different, so you can just it can just live in fantasy land. But I think truth is stranger than fiction, for sure.
Well, you're not going to believe this, but we're at the end of our show here.
That was a blast.
Yes, did I tell you not that it would be just chilling out and having a good time?
There's so much we didn't talk about.
That is why I'm hoping that you will be a part of the universe in some way.
Yeah, I was going to tell her that Stephen Greer thought the Cache Landrum was a man-made thing, and that radiation leak made those people sick.
But that is a discussion that we can have at another time. And like I was saying,
just to entice her back.
Yes, exactly. Well, I'm sure we'll be gushing all over her. at some point later. But before we take off, go ahead and give the audience contact information, websites, your YouTube site again, so that they know where to find you. Because we want you to get some traffic going.
Oh, thank you so much, guys. And it was a blast talking to you. Thank you so much. And I'm going to be listening. I listened to a few shows before this, and I'm going to be listening to some more. So I'm hooked.
Cool. An honorary space cadet.
Yeah. So it's TexasUFOSightings.com or TexasUFOs.com. I probably should just say that. It's easier. The YouTube is Texas UFO Sightings. I'm on Facebook as well. It's just kind of annoying. It's Texas UFOs on Facebook, and then Texas UFO Sightings on YouTube. I have a Twitter. I have a Instagram. It is all on the site, though. In the About section, and I try to link everything up, and all the videos and everything. So I'm also known as UFO Jane, out there. So it's kind of my silly name my little fun name, on Instagram and stuff. So, but yeah, I'm around, and I read the reports. I report on the reports. If you see a UFO or an alien or even a ghost or just anything weird in Texas, I do care about it, and I'm not going to laugh. Yep.
Well, you've been awesome, and we appreciate your time. And Surlana and I will follow up with you, and like I said earlier, going to hook you up with some Spaceboy music and my latest album. And like I said, we're definitely going to be talking more with you. And I can't wait. Yeah, we can't wait either. So at this point, good night, and we'll talk soon.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Good night. Thanks so much, guys.
Right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
What a show. First off, I'm going to kill Skype because it's just really...
we need to go through... we need to have this routine starting at, 7 o'clock, testing it, making sure it takes, because I don't know why. It works and it doesn't work. It works.
When we first started the show, we actually did 2 laptops for Skype. I know that was kind of ridiculous, but it kind of works. So we need to explore some ideas and whatever, because it hasn't been too bad for us. But when we produced the Quantum Hologram Matrix show, it is kind of tedious to get everything to A1, A-OK kind of situation.
Yeah, it really acts up during the week. I don't know what the solution is. I've done that fix that there's out there. I've deliberately not updated it so it wouldn't do this again, and yet it does it again.
So hey, Surlana, what do we have coming up?
Well, as always on Wednesday, we have the Quantum Hologram Matrix with Reverend John Polk in his show. Now he will be on.
Now that's as the network.
As the network. As for this program, we'll still be here next Saturday because we have no life. And, all of our family is away.
So let me rephrase that. So what is next week's show?
I don't know. We're just going to be here.
So I'm looking at the board. It looks like it's topic roulette.
I am trying to trick my dad. And I'm going to trick him to call in with Skype and see if he'll tell stories, some funny stories.
Mm-hmm. So
but I don't know if he'll go for that.
I can't believe that next week is the 24th. And then, of course, the week after that is the 31st, which will be our prediction show.
Yeah, that will be easier.
And, we're working hard behind the scenes here. We are going to be talking to a few people to... bring you sponsors to the show and advertisements, and so we're kind of excited about that.
We got a couple of meetings in the new year.
Yes, we do, and we're just waiting for after the holidays. So what else do we have, Surlana, before we head on out of here?
Spaceboy Music is now right before Spaceboy Universe.
Yes, Spaceboy Music has moved to right before Spaceboy Universe, and we'll be in the chat room chatting it up, talking it up to you. If you want to come in there early, get the groove on. And speaking of getting the groove on, what would make your grooving life much better is get the new CD from Spaceboy Universe. Well, it's not not the CD. First off, it's not a CD, and it's not Universe. So let me go back. Get the new music album from Spaceboy, and that is
digital.
Is digital on spaceboymusic.com, which is called Unique Techniques. 17 amazing tracks. For $10, you can't beat that deal, and you get all these wonderful hits like The Eyes of Argus that plays the intro for Quantum Hologram Matrix. You get Solaris's theme music for her book, A Million Miles to Midnight. I mean, it is quite a deal for $10, and even Grandma likes to bust a groove.
And Fran, Tanner, Bob and Bev, you have packages coming your way. Ty, you've got a box coming your way with various things.
First off, Ty, the box is labeled Dennis, but it says care of Ty. So make sure they keep an eye out for that, because I know Dennis is going to steal it from me. But yeah, all the space loot has been gone out. But speaking of tonight, since we had technical difficulties with Skype real quick, is that the first 10 emails that come into stuff at spaceboyuniverse.com will receive Space Loot tonight, which is Gordon Roop's book, The Wrong Tombstone. Thank you. And it's a Kindle edition book. So send us your emails, and we will get you hooked up on that. And the thing about the Kindle is that you don't have to wait for us to send it to you. Once we do our thing on our end on Amazon, boom, you got it. So with that said, Surlana, it looks like we're here. So say goodnight, Surlana.
Good night, Surlana.
Spaceboy Universe is hosted by Spaceboy and Surlana. Executive producer is Surlana. Social media producer is Dennis Koch. Associate producer is Lee Ann Cordes. Music production is Spaceboy of SpaceboyMusic.com. Special thanks goes out to Lee Ann K, K28, Mark S, and Bob N. This has been a Spaceboy Universe production. Support the universe by exploring Spaceboy Universe with Spaceboy and Surlana. Sweet dreams, Space Cadets.